Wait for the rest of the latecomers. Let's start with introductions. We know who is in the house, and then we can begin. Let's start from this side. A quick introduction, 60 seconds max.
Hi everyone, my name is David Hussain. I'm not a techie, just would like to disclose that right away. I'm a psychotherapist and I work in Wellbeing. I'm a Wellbeing expert. Thanks.
Hi guys. Hello. My name is Kevin Bahati. Not so techy, but techy.
Get it better.
Yeah, get it better.
Thank you. Give it up for Kevin.
Hi everybody.
Hello.
My name is George. I'm fully techy. So definitely improved. Yes, and I'm here to learn about Scala. Yeah, very excited. Yeah, thanks.
Give it up for him.
Hi everyone,
Hello.
I am Steven Metich. I am a software developer at Island Africa. I'm the Digital Things in Scala. I'm happy to be here. Just here to learn a bit about how I build these applications. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Give it up for him.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Paul Muno. I'm still a student. But during free time, I do programming.
Give it up for now. Thank you so much.
Hello guys.
Hello.
I'm Emmanuel. I'm also a software engineer working with Dimension Data. Happy to be here. It will be my first time to write Hello World with Scala.
Give it up for him.
Hello, I'm Kira. I'm newly techy. I'm beginning my career, so I want to see what Scala has to offer.
Awesome. Give it up for him.
Hi everyone, my name is James, software developer, not in the JVM space, so this will be my entry point.
Give it up for James. Hey, I'm taking my coffee, man. Hey! Yes.
My name is Conrad. I am an old hand. I'm just going to see, to learn about scaling and Scala.
Awesome. Give it up for coming.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
I'm Elijah Ndugu. I'm also a software engineer. I'm also part of the Nairobi JVM, and I work with Conrad.
Awesome. Give it up for Bobby. Can skip the chief. We go to the next one. He'll introduce himself.
Hi everyone,
Hello.
my name is Lee Ndego. I'm a software developer, Java, and actually come from DevOps.
Awesome. Give it up for him.
My name is Oduri Oranga, and I am a curious software enthusiast.
Give it up for Dori.
Hi guys. My name is Gabriel Owino. I'm a Python and Java dev, but I'm also a Scala dev.
Give it up for him.
Hello everyone,
Hello.
my name is Memory Wabule. I'm a software developer into the market.
Awesome. Give it up for him.
Morning everyone.
Morning.
My name is Robert Kimutai. I'm a software engineer at Gikandi. I'm interested to learn more about building scalable apps with Scala.
Awesome. Give it up for him.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
My name is Gikandi Chinero. I'm a software developer at Gikandi Limited. I'm here to learn Scala.
Give it up for Kipni.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
My name is Collins Ocheng. I'm a first year student at the University of East Africa. I want to learn more and also network. Thank you.
Awesome. Give it up for him. I can skip you. We go to Sam.
Hey everyone, my name is Sam. I am here to just tell stories and share also some story to not only you guys but also everyone on the digital platforms. Very excited as well to learn.
Give it up for Sam. Now the mic, please. Yes.
My name is Clement, software engineer working on a startup building business intelligence tools. Here to learn and to. I was always wanted to hear Sam speak, so it's an opportunity.
Give it up for Clement.
Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Derito, working as a startup as a software developer.
Ah, nice. Give it up for me. Now, Chief, you can come and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Nice to see you guys. I feel like I've been shooting. So my name is Graham. I work at After Stocking. I write some code, but I also now majorly do marketing for devs. So karibuni sana.
Mpigie Graham. Finally, before we introduce Ngai, my name is Michael Kemali. I've been in the community ecosystem for over now 12 years. Currently, I work for After Stocking as several community leads. I'm excited to always create those pipelines, ensure that we provide opportunities, we give you the skills and the platform so that we can all grow. So beyond, I love people. That's why I do what I do. And one of the things that actually excites me every weekend is that I'll meet new devs who are building amazing stuff. And it's always a pleasure to always be hosting such events. If this is your first event, there are so many colors that are coming. There are a couple of hackathons that we have done. So I would welcome you to be active, because one of the things that I've seen over 12 years for people who have created products that can scale, and I think maybe some will attest to this, is consistency. So just ensure that every opportunity you have to come for such an event, a workshop, a hackathon, make sure you avail your time, and also come with a friend. You can't win alone, isn't it? Yeah, give it up for me. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Ngai to introduce himself and say a little bit about JVM.
So, good morning. My name is Fungai Muginda. For those who are new to Nairobi JVM, we've been running Nairobi JVM for the last couple of years. Shout out if you're still on this journey with us. For those who are new, welcome. We enjoy doing a lot of community building with support from companies like Africa Shopping. So welcome. This is a very open place. Ask questions, interrupt the speaker. Sam is a very good teacher, so he's got an opportunity to learn. And we hope we'll see you at the next Nairobi JVM session. Welcome all. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Give it up for Gikandi. Thank you so much. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Sam himself to introduce himself and also to start the session.
Yeah, so thanks guys for coming. I really appreciate this, that you took the time. Yes, so I'm that guy on the screen. And I also have to mention my wife is in the house. I brought a friend. If she's still around at the end, make sure you network. I think she's a good human being. So welcome to the event. Today I wanna just, instead of showing code and talking to you about technical, like classes and objects and all that, I actually wanted to make this very personal. So just really talk about my story, my experience. Who is this dude? Why is he dressed like this? Why does he have dreadlocks? And just give you a sense of my journey so far, and hopefully get you guys to see, because my goal is to just share my experience. So I want to tell you guys about my experience. I've been building applications for a long time, so walk you guys through my process. So for example, if someone walked in here and said, build M-Pesa, how many of you will know where to start? So some of you probably will, but I know where to start, right? So where do you start? Do you fire up Emacs? Do you fire up, what do you do? So basically, how do you do that? And I think it's basically just distilling down what I've been doing for the last 20 years. I started writing code back in the day into maybe a few simple and sometimes maybe silly, stupid. You might see some things here that you completely disagree with. But that's just my experience. That's how I build applications. And I think that can spark a conversation on how can you get there faster. It took me 20 years, can it take you 6 months to actually build something that really scales? Slides. Sorry, I wrote some slides yesterday at 2 a.m. I wasn't intending to do that, but I figured, so just talk to you about my intentions today. My intention is just help you guys understand my process, or define my process. How do I build these applications? And if you think about the game of basketball, for example, so if you want to learn basketball, you could learn, let's say you had the chance to learn basketball from one of the best players. Let's say, I'm not saying I'm Kobe Bryant, but let's say you're learning from Kobe Bryant, right? So you could learn basketball from someone who's, has been playing the game, is already a student, or you could learn basketball from a student of the game, someone who deeply understands how your position on the court increases the percentage of the shots that you take. So if you look at Michael Jordan, for example, he used to maneuver to a certain position, and once he's there, it's in. And Kobe Bryant was the same. So he knows he's not the biggest guy, he's not the strongest guy, he's not the fastest guy, but when he's playing basketball, you can see that he has such an IQ. So when he's approaching the defense, you can see that he actually knows where to go depending on how these guys, whether they're leaning like this or leaning like this, he knows if I do this, I'm going to score. And to give you an example, he spent a summer with, he's a Celtics player, I'm forgetting his name actually. He took them to the finals this time. He just spent one summer with Kobe Bryant before he passed away. Jason Tatum. You guys know Tatum? So Tatum spent a summer with Kobe Bryant, and he's probably going to win as many championships, maybe more championships than Kobe Bryant, just because he was taught how to approach the game. So that's basically, okay, so actually I really do need the slides. Samke, are we good?
We're good. Give me one more.
Samke is writing some code, so he's also going to teach us how to do this. Oh, go for it, yeah. So and it all comes down to signal versus noise. I think there's a lot of noise in the software industry. There's so much noise. How many programming languages exist? Every day there's new ones being churned out. So there's so much noise, there's so many tracks, there's a billion different paths you can take. So are you gonna build websites? Are you gonna do databases? Are you gonna so you kind of have to filter out a lot of noise before you really find the signal. And once you find the signal, you realize that what we've been told takes 20 years, maybe it takes 6 months to learn. So how do you actually find the signal, and how do you train your mind so that you ignore the noise and you say, you know what, I'm gonna be X, and as X, this is what I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna forget there's anything else that exists, and really focus on mastering that. And today I'm going to show you my signal. So what's my signal? What do I do? What do I follow? And I've been doing this for the last 8 years. I haven't learned a new language. I haven't, I picked up Rust for, but I was on a plane and I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. Like, I've seen Go come and go, I've seen all these things, but I really, once I picked up Scala, I was like, I'm going to pick up Scala. And then even within Scala is a massive language, very expressive, there's functional aspects, there's object-oriented aspects. I picked a framework. I picked the Akka framework, and I went deep. So I understand the Akka framework so well that I can solve almost any problem with it. So, and sometimes as developers you're told, hey, you're using your square peg round hole type thing, but I'm like, hey, if the customer experience is not influenced by whether the square peg round hole, it's just the customer experience. So if I can replicate the customer experience using a framework, why should I learn anything else, right? And then there's habits that reinforce success. So what are simple, silly habits? So for example, Kobe might tell you, if you dribble this way, the defense will go like this. Like just simple things that you see him do it, and it's very simple, it's not complicated, it doesn't require too much athletic ability, but if you do it, you actually reinforce your success. So what are some of those simple habits that I could come up with that can help you? Remove mental block. How do you keep yourself going? How do you know where to start? When I say build and pressure, how do you remove that? We're writing code, and writers have writer's block. We also have mental block, so you can actually freeze and really wonder, where do I start? So what are these things that you can do that will get you moving? Because just starting to move is like half the journey. Once you really start to move, then everything starts to write itself. So what are some simple, silly things that you can do that will really help you along that journey? So in terms of the reason why we're doing this, so this is going to be a series, we want to be consistent, is because we want to have an abundance of software architects. So really what I'm training here is software architecture, not anything else. So if you want to build websites, if you want to build, I don't know what else you want, but basically if you want to build software that scales, so backend systems that scale. By backend systems, think about the Africa stocking, SMS services. So what does it take to build an SMS service that will process millions of requests every hour and not go down and scale horizontally and give you the analytics you need and give you a seamless, smooth experience? In fact, a lot of the time our website is down more than the backend. So how do you build a service that can really handle that scale? And how do we shorten the path to mastery? So how do we make sure that we're sharing our experience? Because there's not many engineers who've been working this hard this long. And I'll tell you some of the reasons why people don't work this long in the software field. I have insisted on writing software to the point where even my investors sometimes are wondering what's wrong with this guy, why is he still writing code? So I've insisted on that, and I really want to share this so that if anyone can just pick up, even if it's just one habit that you're like, this is interesting. That's something that can help you even as you start. And I want an abundance of free African software. So we always use software that's written in Russia, in the US. Why isn't MySQL built in Africa? Why can't we build a better version of MySQL? Why can't we build our own vision, our own version of this software that we use every day? What does it take to actually get that going? And make it free and create this movement where anyone can come learn. We can have these events where we just show up, we hack around, and we build a better Uber. We just do those things just because we love doing it and because it's fun. I love writing code because it's such a creative, fun process. How do you get there faster to the point where you just want to create and build new stuff? And then for me, this is a safe space. AT has been a safe space for me, so how do we have a safe space to share our experiences openly, honestly, abundantly as well, where you can just say, this is what I'm going through. From the good to the ugly, to the evil, to the bad, whatever it is you're going through, how do you have these spaces where you can come and be like, you know what, I hate Scala, I want to do this with Go. Just that safe space where we can all just learn from each other and become better software architects. So I'll start with how I grew up. My wife told me she's a psychotherapist, so she made sure I have this light. It's very important to understand who we are. Who am I? Where did I come from? I come from Ihide. How many know where Ihide is? Gadudi? Teto? Nyeri, yes. so I was born in okay. Hello? Yeah, so I was born in a small village. How many were born in a small village? Or a big village? Yes. So there's a lot of villagers in here. So you can attest to how life is in the village. So life there's a lot of things that you don't like. I didn't like waking up and going to pick tea. Yeah. So you grow up tough. You grow up tough. You grow up in tough conditions, and basically you have to create your own reality sometimes to make it out of the village. And that's where people become. That's where you see people on the spectrum. It's someone who's walking around but he's in his own world. It's a way for you to cope with how harsh the conditions are. Teto is called. I started picking tea maybe when I was 5-6 years old. Going to the local school, living in a household with adults who maybe are not behaving, and I think that really helped me be like, you know what, I need to survive, and I'd create my own realities to help me cope with what was going on. That's where I come from, and that means, for example, I can sit here and form abstract connections in my head very fast. So when I say build M-Pesa, I haven't, but if we say we're going to build M-Pesa, by the end of the day today, we'll have a prototype. We'll have something that works, that's maybe scales. So I can really form these connections very quickly. And I think that came from my childhood. But that's my experience. By the way, all of this is just my experience. It's not, it doesn't have to be your experience. This is my experience. And I worked so hard because in that environment, sometimes you don't feel safe. You know, you don't feel safe. I know you guys, even in school, you go to school, you know, you might be canned that day. How are you gonna feel safe when there's gonna be a stick landing on you the next day? So you really, you spend your entire life working extremely hard to keep yourself safe. I know you guys have seen this phrase of 10,000 hours, so I've put in my 10,000 hours, especially on the software side. So I really saw software as a way out. I remember when I was a child and I saw a joke about a Netflix engineer. No, not Netflix. Netscape engineer, and they're in a train, and the ticket is like maybe $5. The guy goes into the bar. So there's two of them. They don't want to pay for the ticket. Then one of them decides they don't want to pay, so I'm gonna go into the bathroom, and locks himself in the bathroom. So when the guy comes, collects the ticket. So both of them get into the bathroom, or something crazy. I don't remember exactly. All I remember is these guys were making $80 an hour. I was like, dude, my first job, I was making $30 a month. I remember. I was a storekeeper in a school in Nakuru, basically doing all the store keeping work, doing all that work. So in my head, I was like, I could double my salary and do this in an hour. So since then, I've really been chasing this. Hey, I need to become the best software engineer that there is, because that's what's going to keep me safe, right? And that's why I put in my hours, because 10,000 hours is a lot. It's not normal to put in 10,000 hours. I don't think anyone should have to put in 10,000 hours. That's a lot of hours. If you look at life, I mean, I don't know how many hours you have, but 10,000 is actually quite a bit. Maybe you have more than that. You spend the other half sleeping and the other half, with your wife, hopefully. So I don't think she'll come for another event. And then through my career, and I'll talk through my career and some of the stuff I've built, what I've worked on. I think AT has really given me a safe space to really go deep, practice, be myself, and not apologize. So it's been that environment that has really created. Like when I show up in AT and I tell guys I'm in a bad mood, they understand. They don't keep away from me. When I'm in a good mood, they know how to ride that wave. When I say I want to write code, they know not to disturb me. When I tell them I want to get off the calendar, they know. So it's really that safe space that you can create. And I think that has really taught me a lot about this craft and how you become good at it. So I actually hacked KCSE. So I did KCSE in 1999, so I'm actually turning 40 this year. I think in 1999, they only used to rank the top 3 students in the country. Otherwise, you don't know who is, today how you can know who is number 74. Those days, you only knew who is number 1, number 2, number 3. And I remember my mom telling me, you can be number 1 in the country. Because I think at that time I was the time I became number 1 in Alliance, actually. Because I figured out in that system, you just need to filter out the signal from the noise. When your geography teacher comes and tells you fold mountains in Meru, you're like, that's noise. The signal is, how fold mountains formed, and 1 or 2 examples. Anything beyond that, you don't need to remember. So I used to take these very meticulous notes. Before every exam, I would literally go through the whole curriculum. So by the time KCSE was coming through, I had gone through the whole curriculum so many times. So I knew if it's history, Mesopotamia, that's it. 5 reasons. One reason is spirit of adventure. No question, that one is in there. So you quickly start to figure out how does this thing work. But then I realized in Form 4, one thing. I had a horrible handwriting. horrible. I used to write like a chicken. But my teachers knew me. They knew this kid is smart. So they will actually take the time they will give me the space. They'll be like, I know this kid is smart. So let's read what he's trying to say. But then I realized the guys who will mark my exams, man, they don't have time for that. They're being paid by the hour. So they want to go through as many papers as possible. So I knew there were smarter kids in my class, but I knew if I had the best handwriting, I was going to be number one. So I worked on my handwriting in Form 4. Worked on my handwriting. That's when I became number one in Alliance. Then I panicked during mocks. I remember I panicked. Math was my best subject. I think paper 2, I started paper 2. I couldn't hack it. I almost cried. And then finally, KCSE came around. Did my best. Wrote with my best handwriting. And lo and behold, went back to, that time we were living in Nakuru. Then I hear, oh, dude, you were number 3 in the country. And I was like, holy shit, okay. And before that, since given my family circumstances, I did not even think about applying to the US or anything of that nature. So I actually applied for chemical engineering. And my mom told me, you're stupid, you need to do medicine. Of course I changed to medicine very fast. And then we had a really great principal at Alliance who said, hey dude, why don't you apply to colleges in the US? Alliance used to send students to all these top colleges. So I applied to MIT, Harvard, and Yale. That's it. Because I was like, I'm just throwing a spear into the ocean. Maybe it will catch a fish. I got into MIT, I got into Yale. Harvard, I didn't get into Harvard. I actually didn't have money to send my application to Harvard. I went to the post office and said, you have to cut the envelopes on the corners so that you pay less to send. I didn't have postage. And to this day, there's a Saba cafe that I owe 3,000 shillings. Oh man, anyway, I don't know if I should be saying this publicly. But I hacked my way into it. Going to MIT, it didn't even mean anything to me. I was like, yeah. I remember my uncle telling me, you're going to Manchester University. I didn't even apply to Manchester because he couldn't pronounce Massachusetts. So that was my story. I'm in the village, I'm chilling. One day I'm listening to the news. Today Moi went to church, and then, Samuel Derito Gikandi, we're looking for you. I'm like, what? 7 a.m. news. So that was Alliance trying to tell me, hey dude, you got into these schools and you need to send your forms and get your financial aid and just get your shit together, man. So that happened. But you can see how this was all by chance. This was all me just being like, hey, is there another way? Do I need to do what everyone is doing, or can I do something else and really end up in a different place? So MIT was hard. MIT was trauma, man. I joined MIT thinking I have arrived. But then they told me, dude, this is, half of you are going to be below average. Imagine if all of you come and you're number one from all your schools and you think you've made it. And then I say, half of you are going to be, this half is going to be below average. How do you go from number one to below average? Dude, so I spent all my life in MIT asking, what is the class average? So if I was below average, man, I was just like, oh my, and it happened a lot. So, so it was actually a really, really humbling, tough experience. And I went there to make money. So me, I was like, this guy's better pay me or something. I'm just here, so I get paid. So I didn't lean into the academic side. In fact, we used to finish, so a course would finish, let's say it finishes on Monday. On Tuesday, if you ask me what I would be like, I forgot. I didn't it was just that, let's just go through this. And I'm telling you this to tell you guys, you don't have to go to MIT to do what I'm doing. MIT for me was just, I was there because I got in. That's it. But of course, it did lead me on a certain journey, but there is nothing, even if you do the MIT Open course where all those things they teach, they are fancy and great, but really it's to make sure that half of the smartest people in the world are below average. why would you take those courses, man? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, sorry. I love you, MIT, but seriously, let's not gaslight everyone. That's the path to success. The path to success is actually a lot easier, I think. If you pick the right tools and if you go deep into them, I think you can get there. So most concepts I actually use today are actually self-taught. This is things I've learned over the last few years. Since I left MIT, things I learned working in companies, that's when you really start to learn what happens in industry. So the most important thing is, I know people put a lot of premise on college, but even as you're in college. For example, when I was in college, I did an internship as a sophomore, and I worked with the founder of Dropbox. Funny enough, and this kid, man, you could just tell he was different. I was there, I was, biking to the office, he's there, but he already knew what Linux was. He told me he's been writing code since he was 6 years old. So he was there to build a product. Me, I was there to get paid. As I told you, I went to the US to get paid. So I was there to make as many. That time I was making about maybe $8 an hour. So I knew I had a long way to go. But you could see this guy was ahead of the curve. And there's nothing special that he was doing that we can't do today. We can start Dropbox right now, today afternoon. We really can. So it's just that, how do you train your mind? How do you get there? So obviously, finished MIT, did a master's by mistake because I didn't file my visa papers on time. I was a joker, man. I was just there. I was hoping to get paid. And then Morgan Stanley were like, hey dude, why don't you come? You went to MIT. Most MIT kids were going to the West Coast. I wanted to work in New York because I went to New York and we went to a party on the 20th floor with some Kenyans. And some Kenyan girl hit on me, and I was like, whoa, this is New York. So that really, I was like, I want this life. So when guys went to West Coast, me, I was like, I'm going to New York. So I went to Morgan Stanley. So the way Morgan Stanley works, and I really like this, and we try and practice this in AT, is when you join, they don't expect any output from you for the first 3 to 6 months. They basically just teach you. So you basically, they bring in people from Asia, from London. You're all part of the same class, and they just teach you, this is Morgan Stanley, this is what we do. And so in those 3 months, I actually now started getting fascinated with this finance, money world. So I was like, okay, so let me pick up C++. Actually today, beyond Strap, the guy who started C++ actually works for Morgan Stanley. That is how deep those banks go into tech. I'm on the board of a bank, and I tell them, guys, yes, I'm not JS developer, but at the end of the day, you're going to need to go deep into this stuff to really understand how money moves. So I was like, yeah, because there were some really good C++ guys in that company. I was like, yeah, I want to learn under these guys. Some Russian guys, it's really, the guys who are like, they write one line of code and it changes your life. So I did that, and I gaslit my way into a job. Of course, I said I've been doing C++. This guy looked at me like, no, you haven't. So he gave me another 3 months before I could check in my first class. So I used to write the code. He's like, are you ready for it to be reviewed? I sent it for review. He's like, why is it const char star, not star, const char? Why is it? Why are you using this? Why are you doing that? And just every line of code mattered. And that really meant a lot to me. I was like, holy shit. It's not about how quickly you move. It's about how deeply you think about every single line of code. From, is it const? Is it on the heap? Is it on the stack? Is it even the name itself? How do you name these things? What happens when this thing comes up and it's running? How many of these things are going to be brought up? Is it going to be garbage collected? When is it going to be garbage collected? What's the scope? All these things. Actually, today my favorite language is not Scala, unfortunately, Mr. Ungai. It's C++. I love that language. It's such an amazing, it's so expressive. So you really start to see how some of these things that we've been told are not so important are actually the most important things, especially when you're building at scale. If you're building a website, HTML, JavaScript, by all means. But if you're going to build something that really, really moves, then you need those languages. So I really started to learn, okay, be patient. Of course, I was building platforms that would be handling millions of dollars. So everything mattered. And this guy was patient with me. I still remember his name. Very patient with me. Because he saw this Kenyan boy who was trying to move too fast, and he slowed me down. I was like, step on the brakes, just slow down, you'll get there. Yeah, and that way I became good, actually. So I became one of those guys in that group that was very good. He actually left to join another group in the company that was doing high frequency trading. So I started learning under another Chinese guy. His favorite question was, are you fungible? That's why I hated management. He's like, how fungible? Are you fungible? I'm like, is that like what is that? I don't know. I guess I am fungible. Anyway, I don't know. But that was his main thing. Maybe one day, when I'm in a certain place, I will understand what he was asking me, because he was a smart guy. Yeah. So my first boss went to high frequency trading. Then so that was the team where if you're really good, you end up there. So one day he was like, "Hey Sam, we'd like you to work with us." And then now this was now proper high performance C++ stuff. This was not every line, every little detail, everything mattered. So it was a lot of just use const. Make sure everything is. Make sure you, when you look at that code, you know exactly what it's doing. Don't write comments. So there was a lot of, and I'll talk about a lot of these things later on, about how we just learned the art of writing code, the art of building software that scales. So this team, we were trading about $2 billion a day. And this was a team of about 7 engineers. So we write software and we trade in like maybe 20 exchanges across the world. And when I joined the team, I was put in the, so we were starting to do stuff in Asia before we wanted to do it in Europe and the US. So I became kind of the Asia guy. So I used to go and work nights. It was amazing. You rock in at like 3 p.m., you leave at 3 a.m. or whatever. And then eventually they were like, hey, do you want to actually go to Hong Kong and start, really start the business there? And I went to Hong Kong, and that's when I fell in love with code. I think that's when I was like, oh my God, this is a superpower. So I landed in Hong Kong. No one has any idea what is this high frequency thing. I am trading in Asia, so I became one of the biggest market makers in the Tokyo Stock Exchange. Basically, you just sit on the other side of the trade, you wait for someone to show up. If you sense it's going up, you move out of the way. If you sense it's going down, you basically just play with that. And I got exposed to the business end to end. So I was basically writing the code, trading. It was fun. I mean, Friday 3 p.m. I used to get sad because I'm like, oh, we have to wait until Monday. And then Monday comes, and then they're like, hey, it's $50 million for you. You trade. Dude, I was on a high, man. I mean, I used to fly to Nairobi business class and then walk around town, just being like, do you guys know what I do? It was fun. It was good. But that was like, wow. It was really cool. So, but then the management thing kicked in, and politics and big swords were being drawn in New York. Before you know it, collateral damage. Your BlackBerry is restarting, you can't log in, you gotta go. And that was a very traumatic experience for me. And anyone who's worked in AT, and I know there's a few of you here, I've told this story before. That for me was like, oh my God, that's crazy. I was the rising star, and it was, if this kid goes back to New York, he's gonna run the whole of Asia. And because of whatever reason, we don't want that to happen, so let's make sure we get rid of him. Tough time for me. Obviously now I'm thinking, I'm going back to Ihide. This time actually, so my mom had moved from Ihide all the way to Wellbeing. Now it's even worse. Do you know what Wellbeing means? Jikaza. It means life is hard. So I used to have nightmares. I'm waking up and I'm in Jikaza, man. I'm like, dude. So it was very traumatic. So I quickly found a girlfriend. you gotta problem solve on the, you gotta think on your feet, you know. Moved out of my apartment into hers. She was like, you know what, I can only keep you here for 6 months, even me, I'm leaving. So I had 6 months to like, and by that time we had started Africa Stalking with my co-founder Eston, and you know, actually we were about to shut it down, and I was like, you know what, let me see what this thing is about. Let me write some code. I know how to build software. I know how to build platforms. So what are we trying to do? And I think that's when we came up with the one line of code that has really sustained this company to this day. It's called send message. You know, you go on our website and you see, oh, you know, Africa Stalking Gateway is equals new IT Gateway, IT Gateway.send. That shit makes millions. One line of code. But what goes behind it is like, oh man, I mean, it's the execution, you fly to Nigeria and talk to some guys, and it's a whole, but it's literally one line of code. So we simplified, because before we did that, developers were getting Canal gateways and getting SIM cards and you know, just doing random. I think Conrad maybe can attest. There were a lot of hacks to get around it, just because one, you don't want to talk to Safaricom, first of all. And then two, you're not building an SMS gateway anyway, you're building a payments platform, you're building something else. So I was like, okay. And I remember when I came in, we had an engineer who was working on it. He had that line, but then with like 20 different parameters. DLR mask, blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, dude. Just give me 2 end messages. That's it. We start there. And to this day, we've not changed our API. I know some of you don't like that, the fact we don't use. I know some of my engineers cry, oh, we don't have a V2 that has newer, because that was 2012. We didn't know anything about OAuth, and so we just threw an API key into the header, and we were like, just throw an API key into the header, and then now but we haven't changed. But it's not just, if you write that one line of code, you won't make the money that we're making because of what goes behind it. And that's what I really want to teach you guys, what goes behind getting that one line of code to really work and really scale and really build something that works. So got into Africa Stalking. Of course, Africa Stalking is very different from Morgan Stanley. It's a $1 trillion business. This one is a $1 trillion Uganda shilling business. I don't want to diss my Ugandan friends, but man, that currency, it's pretty. So lot more constraints. Started with, I was like, you know what, this C++, because C++ in Morgan Stanley worked because we had the guy who wrote C++ in Morgan Stanley. So I quickly realized a lot of the libraries we're using actually were proprietary to Morgan Stanley. So if you want to do like connect to the network, if you want to do any arithmetic, if you want to do all these things, that's how the bank makes its money. It's from keeping those things away from everyone else. And you know, when they open source, maybe they open source a way for you to read a ledger. Those things, actually, we had such secrecy, we couldn't talk about what we were doing. Even in this, if we were looking, I can't tell you what I'm doing. You know, it was crazy. So when I got out, I was like, okay, this thing, man, we gotta use PHP, because I had done PHP back in the day. I was like, let's start with PHP, and I think that was the best decision, because I realized with PHP, you can edit the user's experience on the fly. You know, there is no compilation. In fact, so you're on the help desk, the user comes, oh, you know, my SMS is not going, and you're like, oh shit, that's what I did yesterday. Okay, hold my beer. Boom, 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 try again. That is how we won this ecosystem. Guys were like, what are these guys doing? You literally, you talk to them, and the next minute it's fixed. While the experience with any other software in this industry was like, oh, you know, and even us today, we've become, because now when you move to these, you know, languages where you have to compile and CI/CD and all that crap. Actually, it's not crap, maybe it's good stuff. It's how do you approximate that real experience of, I have an issue, it's fixed. PHP is incredible in that sense. Now, PHP has its issues, obviously. You know, the fact that it occupies a whole thread. So we went deep into the Apache code, and I think Facebook did that ultimately. So we did constrained environments. We couldn't go that deep. And I remember one of my friends was visiting from Twitter, really smart. Actually, the smartest guy I know, this Kenyan man. In Alliance, he used to be number 1 before we've tallied all his subjects. So he's doing 9 subjects. If you add 8 of his subjects, he's already number 1. So then the last one he gets a 90. So he leads the whole. He was insanely brilliant. And he told me we use this thing in Twitter called Scala, and this thing is magic. And I was like, tell me about it. This is so cool. So I went, because by that time PHP was already starting to tell us, hey, chief, these messages are coming in fast and furious. I can't. And we used to have the fastest API, because how PHP works is, it's not microservice. You get the thing at the top, authenticate, at the bottom, Safaricom. In one script. So it's so fast, because once that SMS gets attention, it's quick. But then that doesn't scale to millions of SMSs, because then that thread is tied up for that SMS, tied up for the next one, tied up for the next one. So we needed a language where, hey, authenticate, and then hand off, and then authenticate the next one, hand off. That's a much better user experience, because the user is not there waiting, I've not been authenticated, what's going on, is a T down, which is what started happening with PHP. So basically, service was unavailable. The last thing you want here is service unavailable. Put that shit in a queue, man. Like, just, it's available. In AT, actually, we optimized for making money. Because we are like, actually, to this day, I asked some of my engineers, do we have a limit on how many phone numbers you can put in a request? No, we don't. As long as it can fit in a packet that is sent to us. I think one of our biggest customers is over there, Edwin. He'll tell you these stories. Edwin sometimes sends us 1 million numbers. I'm like, dude, how? But we don't have a limit, because we want to make that 1 million shillings. It's important to us. But then when we receive it, we make sure that, hey, we quickly distribute it and we handle it. So I learned Scala, and because I think in 3-4 months, we had written everything. From 0 to, and I remember that night, we got a lot of alcohol, and we were like, we're not gonna drink until the turnover is done. So I was just waiting. It was two of us, 2 engineers, and there were some interns around as well. Of course, they didn't know them, they were just having fun. Then they were just choching us, guys, drink. So I remember, as I was drunk, the SMS came to the phones after we did the turnover, and we went to town, actually. I remember the bouncer looking at me, thinking, are you high or whatever? Like, it was a whole experience. And then I went to bed, wake up the next day and it was a Saturday at 2 p.m. And I remember everyone complaining, did you guys change something yesterday? And I'm like, oh my, so we literally changed everything from PHP to Scala. But we didn't realize Scala is very strict about the format of the request you're sending them. So PHP is so permissive. If you send them a URL encoded request that is not URL encoded, it's like, yeah, I'll handle it. Scala is like, dude, what are you talking about? Whomst are you to send me a request and lie about the payload? So we broke half of the API. So literally spent, I think, if you look at our Git repo, the next 3 months were the most frantic months. We were literally running around. I think at some point, I remember actually, I think it was Leek or Pesapal who told me, dude, your API is now slower. I was like, what? I almost changed back to PHP, because I was like, okay, this is not working. And I rewrote so much. I rewrote a lot of the Safaricom stuff, which was still in PHP, to Python. I used Twisted with like many threads, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that was mad engineering on the fly as customers are complaining. Until finally I discovered the configuration option, where, when some of this software, some of these frameworks come, Hungai can tell you, they put 4 requests per, you can only open 4 network connections. So I actually wrote so many queuing libraries to engineer around the fact that I was only sending 4 requests to Safaricom. And they're like, you can change it to like 1024. I slept for the next 6 months. I just changed that one thing, and oh my God. Then I discovered the power of Scala, man. Oh my God. Guys, it's powerful. It's incredibly powerful. And there's so many things in that language that you're like, why isn't everyone using this stuff? why isn't everyone thinking like this? It really made sense for me. So yeah, so we built, of course, built SMS worked, went to USSD was in PHP. I think USSD was in, there's a USSD.php file that maybe one day we can open source so you guys can see what it looks like. Voice was in Python. It was a framework called Twisted. So Twisted is twisted, man. It gives you concurrency. So we wrote voice to Scala. Then we were like, hey, what else can we do? We wrote Premium SMS. Premium SMS is actually the most infrastructure-heavy product. It's a billing product on SMS. We wrote airtime. We started getting adventurous. We were like, hey, this thing can handle money as well. So we wrote airtime. And then finally we were like, oh, let's build payments. So we built payments. Actually, I think we had the best payment APIs. I think to this day, actually, I haven't seen payment APIs that are as crisp as we did it, where the experience was so good. This was in 2016, 2017, but we didn't know how to operationalize the product. Actually, the code is still there. Actually, it's one of those products I'm like, we should just release it. Whoever feels like they can run with it, they can run with it. So we plugged into the M-Pesa, XML, G2, those gateways. When I say I was doing most of this coding, so I have maybe like 60 repos of Scala. I was just writing code. I was having fun. And then IoT. So even IoT, we were like, hey, we can do IoT. So what are we gonna do in IoT? And we built an IoT product. I think that's when Edwin actually walked into the office and told us the stuff he's doing. I see Calvin is there as well. So these stories, we have some more stories here. So we built a lot of cool stuff. But at the end of the day, that one line that we wrote is the one that kept making money. All this other code is, a lot of it is growing, but we're just building. And then we were like, okay, now let's start a lab where we can even build stuff that doesn't make sense. So we started a lab. People came with products. Edwin came with his product, Mteja, and we were like, this is cool, let's build it. People came with, let's build a saving solution. We built it. Let's build a fitness app, Kuruka. We built it. Let's build let's build Safari Express. We built it. Oh, Faraja. We built it. What else? We built a lot of products in that lab. And I think we were about 4 or 5 engineers really doing this work, and a couple of designers. So it was like boot camp. It was like, guys, okay, from 0 to 100, how do we get there? How do we get there? How do we scale this? How do we build this? Of course, the business side, we didn't take care of it. We were like, wow. We always operated on build and they will come, because when we built that SMS, they came. But for a lot of these other products, they didn't come. But if anything came out of the lab, it was just, how do you build 20 companies so fast, from 0 to 100, and get them to production? To this day, like Bebabegi, we built it, still exists. We built some other, we built IoT during that time. So there was a lot of work that we just did. So I'm just telling you all this just to give you a sense of how hard we worked. And then I built Ilarion. So I remember starting it. Ilarion actually came from a call. We were having a call with a Nigerian customer, and he's like, I'd like you to build this platform for me that will send money. It was during COVID. So during COVID, of course, we all dispersed. Me, I was home. I'm bored out of my mind. And I'm like, I want to write code. So we built this platform on Scala that would make it easy for you to distribute money to people. So people dial a USSD, we create a wallet, and we send them money. But then the customer said, but I want to own the code. And I was like, nah, dude. So, and I remember one of my colleagues asking me, so is there any way that you can do this in a way where they don't own the code? And then Ilarion was born. So I was like, so let me see if there is a way to turn this into an API so that you can actually build this application using Node.js and plug into a Scala backend, and you can do whatever you want. So that's where Ilarion was born. And then lots of conversations with Calvin, who's here, really led to and we still haven't released it. We still, to this point, we are like, how do we release this thing? Because we can see the power of this product, and developers love it. But then my biggest challenge is I'm the only backend engineer on that product. So I'm like, if I release this product properly, I will not sleep. And I told you guys I'm turning 40 this year, so you know I have 3 children. You know, there's a lot of other things that are keeping me awake. And ultimately, we realize this product is about trust, because it's about handling customer data, data privacy. So it's important that people trust the code. And if you look at Bitcoin, for example, people trust Bitcoin because there's a sense of these guys are not doing anything we cannot see. Even though only 10 guys understand what they're doing. There's a sense of this thing is building trust. So trust is actually the rarest commodity today in the world. We didn't even trust our governments during COVID. So if you build a product around trust, it will take off. And that led us to the point of, okay, so why don't we build with everyone? And I also went into my own journey of understanding who I am, and went from scarcity mentality to an abundance mentality. Scarcity meant, I'm not going to tell you what Illyria needs, just come and pay me. And you know, abundance means I will tell you exactly how I built this thing, so you can also build your own. And if we had even 10, 15, 20 80s, Illyrians, like really, really powerful companies that are doing these things at scale, this ecosystem will change so fast. Because I feel like this ecosystem is caught in it's like we think this is a 100-meter dash. No, it's a freaking marathon, man. It's a marathon, and we are so far behind. If we're all running to the finish line, we won't get there. So, you know, so do I want to be 60 and be like, hey, I made all the money, but the ecosystem is actually really struggling? Or do we want to get there where there is a lot of people who are now really good engineers? So when Google come here, they know they're getting the best talent. They know you don't even have to train these guys. They really know what they're doing. In fact, they're telling Google, it's not worth our time. Unless I'm working on the core search engine, I don't think this job is exciting for me. So how do we create that talent pool that transcends? Because I can tell you we hired engineers from Microsoft. It's funny, we hired engineers from Microsoft, from Seattle. They worked with us in AT, and they tell us how bored they were in Seattle. I don't know who works at Microsoft here. Yeah, I know that. After saying that, maybe some of you would raise your hands, but it gives you a sense of how quickly we're going to move as an ecosystem if we build it inside Microsoft versus building it in this kind of environment, where literally it's like seat of your pants. Oh my God, I can only send 4 requests to Safaricom. I need to figure this out. Whereas at Microsoft, the button is not working. Sorry, I know I'm talking shit about them, but I mean, I love them, and Google and all these guys. But are you gonna get close to the fire? Because once you're close to the fire, that's when you harden, man. That's when you're like, oh man, this is what it's all about. So that's what we've been doing. And I'll now go down to some of the lessons. And here is where, you know, some of this will be controversial, but this is just my experience. I'm not trying to. So if you catch feelings, that's your shit you need to deal with, not mine. You need to ask yourself, why did I catch feelings? And then we can talk about that. And I think we'll end up in a good place. So I use Emacs. Now I use Emacs because of legacy. When I joined MIT, so MIT was all about minimal, you learn. MIT, actually, I know I hate on MIT, but I love MIT. It's a great place to meet smart kids who don't think they're smart because they were told they're going to be below average. So you get to hang out with these really super smart geniuses who are like, oh, I'm so stupid. Including myself, where you're like, you go to other schools and actually, a lot of MIT kids don't even say they went to MIT. We say we went to a school in Boston. And if you're daring enough, you say I went to a school in Cambridge. Ooh, because now that's close. Oh, dude, that's MIT or Harvard. like we're so, I don't know, and that's something I need to talk to MIT about. Why did you make us feel like shit? A lot of these African groups, MIT Africans, and oh my God, these kids, they're doing amazing things, but they won't even talk about it. One thing they taught us was use Emacs. But I guess those days there were no IntelliJs. Actually, the name IntelliJ just makes me cringe. I'm like, Jesus. So you're the intelligent one. Emacs is you can make it do nothing for you or do everything for you. Of course, if you're building an Android application, please do not, because I have tried to use Emacs to build Android applications. Please do not do that. Please use Eclipse or other IDEs. But if you're building M-Pesa, use Emacs. That's what I would do. I would use Emacs. I would turn off autocomplete. Turn it off. Some people are catching feelings. I actually did not have autocomplete until maybe 2019, 2020. So a lot of these products are built without auto. So I used to type everything by hand because it slows you down. It slows you down. It tells you, hey, slow down. And then you find other tricks to slow you down as well. Like order your imports alphabetically to waste even more time. So you import this, and then you import, and then you're like, is it alphabetically ordered? You match, or with your eyes, please do this. It will slow you down. Align your equals. So if you have val a equals 10, and then you have val animal equals 20, just move the a equals all the way so it's aligned. I'm telling you, just slow down, please, slow down. And then by the time you're moving that a equals, you'll be like, what is a? Why is it? What is it a part? Why did I call it a? Do I need a? Should a be const? Should a be an int? Should a be a string? Should I so by the time you're done moving it to that point, you've actually started to be like, now I need to understand. Okay. And for me, just try for elegance. Because once you do this stuff, by the way, it becomes elegant. It's like, you look at the code tomorrow and you smile with us. You're like, wow, look at how the equals are so aligned. Look at how the imports are so. I've fought with my engineers over this so many times. You're the first people to catch feelings. I've dealt with this before, but it's actually important that you slow yourself. And if there's other tricks that you can find that will slow you down, please let us know so that we can implement them. It's important that you slow down. Elegance. Just go with, there's a feeling you'll get. When you're deep in, you're in line 50 and you're like, it doesn't feel right. Especially if you have a square and a circle and you're trying to now turn the circle into a square and you're like, nah. What is this? What am I doing? And then treat the code like a Rubik's Cube. You know how you're doing a Rubik's Cube and you're you're shifting. Until when you sleep, you're not having nightmares about. I think that's been our Illyrian journey actually. When we do it until we're not having nightmares. We're like, yes, I know that abstraction fits. If a name, for example, does not match, I have, and the compiler is your friend here. I have written code, you write code by line 5,000. You realize, wow, this thing is not the balance, this is the cost. But then you've used balance and remember, I'm using Emacs, so there is no automatically. Of course, Emacs has some ways of, this. So you now have to learn how do you grep for balance and change to cost. But then do it manually. Just get into that line and see where this place I'm changing from balance to cost. Does it make sense? Take your time. If an abstraction cannot be named, it probably does not belong there. If you're struggling to name something, then really, if I can't find a name for you, then maybe you don't belong. Why am I naming you balance if I don't need the balance at this point? You're at a point where the balance doesn't matter. So why do you have something? So those kinds of just elegance, right? And start over if necessary. Illyrian is more than 100,000 lines of code. I have started over at least 10 times. There's a version of Illyrian that uses gRPC. There's a version of Illyrian that there's so many. In fact, and I'm yet there's a last rewrite that I need to do. I'm still psyching myself up for that one. But I know I will do it, and this one is gonna be fun because it's mostly deleting code. It's gonna be fun. But then also, and then as you restart, you might realize actually you were right the first time. So That's what I'm telling you. It's a process. It's a process. It's a process. But that's the reason why you can find 80 engineers are not working at night. They're not working on weekends. They're chilling, but the product is working because you take your time and you make sure that this thing actually works for you. Yes, and align your equal sign. That's very elegant. I swear to God. I learned this from one of the engineers I sat next to in Morgan Stanley. This Irish. He used to talk to me like everything was a question. So we used to go for lunch together. And I looked at his code once, and it was beautiful. This guy had all the equals were aligned. I was like, wow, it's so elegant. And you can tell he took pride in his work. So from that day on, I was like, you know, I'm gonna start doing this stuff. And to this day, and it's one of the most annoying things, especially when you rename variables, because I even had to find a shortcut in Emacs to do it, because at some point I was like, guys, it's a bit silly, but it helps you slow down. I think at my level, so once you do this over time, then you're allowed some privileges. You know, you can allow yourself, hey, you know, maybe autocomplete is okay. Like I allowed myself autocomplete 15 years down the road. So you can start now speeding, you can copy and paste. Copy and paste. One of the worst things you can do. Like, what? Copy and paste, why are you repeating yourself? First of all, never repeat yourself. So don't copy, just get in there and write it. So yeah, so that's, I think that's you know, on the elegant side. And then consistency. This is the signal versus noise. Just pick a tool and master it. You know, we could have done, Facebook have done PHP to its depths. To this day, they still use PHP for a lot of their really high performance code. We tried PHP, we started writing our own libraries, doing this, went deep. We could have made it work, by the way, which would have been amazing, because now we'd be hiring PHP engineers and turning them into, you know, high frequency traders. And you guys would be like, how did you do that? Imagine, you don't have to just learn PHP. I mean, there's companies that do that. So just pick a tool and master it. And then test the boundaries of that tool. I think we've tested the boundaries of Akka with so many different use cases. From straight through processing to finite state machines to distributed storage to analytics to streaming workloads to APIs to authentication, all this. So we've tested it, and every time the thing works. Is it the most elegant solution for all these different problems? Hell no. I mean, there's a lot of other elegant solutions. Like there's new libraries coming up, but I'm like, nah. I know my house. Think about, this is architecture, right? If you're an architect and every time you're like, oh, I don't think stones are the way to go. Maybe we should try mud. Oh, they've come up with a new, I mean, boss, like, you're gonna spend all your time learning which new material is stronger than what. Look at architects, man. Do architects leave comments? They don't. Anyway, I'll come to comments later. And then just plan on this being a career. Like, just plan yourself out. Be comfortable. Be like, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm like you're telling me to go and learn Bitcoin. Oh. Okay, I don't want to start on that side. Or learn HTML or learn something. Just be like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to be a software architect. Me, I'm not about the front end. I'm just about the back end. I'm about how the data moves, how the requests come in, how they scale. That's my lane. And I want to be very good at that. And I can tell you for a fact, these are some of the most high-paying jobs. Every time they look at the most high-paying jobs in the world, for some reason, Scala engineers are always at the top. And no one asks themselves, well, these guys paid more than almost anyone else. It's because Scala makes this kind of stuff fun. So if you really just want to be like, hey, this is my lane. This is my lane. Even Java is now trying to be like Scala. I think Hungai can attest, or some of the Java engineers. Like, a lot of the features they're adding is just to be like, hey, we're also functional. We have these things that Scala has, blah, blah, blah. We can infer types. Because but Scala is also moving ahead. Now they're introducing Scala 3. I don't even know Scala 3. Me, my lane is Scala 2. That's where I am. Maybe one day I'll go to Scala 3, but that's my lane. So I will learn that. I'll be very good at that. My lane is Akka. I will learn that. if Aka go down tomorrow, maybe we'll talk to VCs and see if we can buy them. But it's open source, so we can clone that code. That's the cool thing too. This stuff is open source. We can improve the Aka framework. We can make it do what we want it to do. And then avoid management. You know, now this, and this was actually my fight in IT for the last 3 years has been how do we remove management as a thing, as a conversation in this company. And we're trying, Graham, we're trying. MK, so we're trying hard to be like, can you run a business without management, right? And I realized as a result, we had a dictatorship where I was the only manager. Like, it became, so now we're in those last steps of, hey guys, we can do this. And actually one of the products we want to build is something that enforces that culture. We could run a company together, and why do you need a manager? You just need, this is our vision for the world. So AT's vision for the world is software developers should be able to work with telcos easily without even thinking that they're working with telcos. Like that should be just a capability they have. The day that is done, then AT's job is done, right? If that's no longer a problem, then we just dissolve. So why do you need layers? When I myself have been traumatized by, you know, not being fungible maybe. Just like, dude, I just want to write code. and I'm speaking from the experience of, I think I'm CEO of like maybe 5 companies right now. You know, director in like 20 companies. And I'm like, I just want to write code, dude. That's it. Why? Let me tell you what management is. Management is me exerting power over you. For no reason. There's no reason. Like, we do have class prefects in school. To make sure the class is washed. Actually, I was a class prefect in Alliance and I still have nightmares that the class has not been washed. And I actually never wrote noisemakers for 2 years, never, even once. I don't remember writing noise. I was the best. They used to call me class monster. I don't know why, but you know, it was traumatic. You see, I'm like, oh my god, I am the class monster. That's what we used to call the class prefect. They're like, why are you giving someone power over another human being? Does that tree have power over that tree? It's not natural. So why are we setting up companies where people have power over other people? And then what happens now is, as the CEO, now imagine, okay, so let's assume some K works for MK, right? So if MK wants some K to do something, he uses his power, right? Then MK works for Graham, right? So Graham uses his power. So Graham needs more power than MK, who needs more power than some K. Then Graham works for me. Now me as the CEO, I need so much power. Basically, I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this and run a family and be another human being. So, is it possible for us to do what we need to do? Like organize this event. The way this event was organized was, no one used any power over anyone else. It just happened. And we're all here and it's happening. But then imagine now if I was like, I'm the CEO, you know, by the time I walk in, what? It doesn't make sense. So for me, that's been a very, and I think it's also because of my own experience. And I'm talking about my experience. Of course, you may not agree with my experience. You may have a great boss. Kevin always calls me boss. I'm like, I don't want to be boss. I want to be in the Ritu. You know, I just want to be another dude walking around. Like that's it. That's where I want to be. And it is very successful. It is actually in like 12, 15 countries, serving thousands of customers, sending millions of messages, and it's flat. AT is flat. If you walk next to an AT employee tomorrow, they can tell you everything you need to know about the company. Because power is also me hiding information from you. Power is actually how we make money. It's how AT makes money, by hiding how we do things. We're gonna make the most money and then, you know, realize, no, that's scarcity. Power should be abundant. Everyone should know exactly what's going on. And then as human beings, we'll create a better world. Sorry, I think I went to the spiritual side. Next lesson is comments. I swear to God, I hate comments. And I think that's going to be a big fight with everyone. Because we've been taught, you know, comments. My theory is this. If you're building a house, just teach the guy how to build a house. If he walks in, why do you need to tell him this is a door? You should already know the construct of a door. You should already know this is the plumbing, this is the gutters, this is the window, this is, like, that's it. And then if you're not building a house, just tell us you're not building a house. Otherwise, why do I need to comment every time? Oh, this is a door, and if you say open, it open. No, dude. I mean, like, it should be obvious. So that's my sense. When Jay-Z makes music, does he leave comments? You just listen. Like, this is a song. There's a hook. There's some rhythm. There's a drum. It's like, oh, the drum is coming. Like, you feel it, man. You feel it. So why is it that with software? And then now the problem with comments is, you write the comment, you implement the logic, then the next day you change the logic, and you have to change the comment. And then, anyway, sorry, that's just my experience. I know it's gonna be a challenge with open source. It's gonna be a big challenge, but I'm also prepared to be like, hey, for me, actually, if there's a comment, and I usually leave my initials next to the comment, SNG. That means there's some shit going on here, I don't know what it is. Please talk to me directly. I go to a point where I'm like, I can't be elegant anymore. I don't know what this is going, I don't know what's going on, and this might blow up badly. So please just talk to me. Those are the comments you'll find in code, SNG. And I think, I don't know, and my job is to like grab for SNG and see, okay, how much drama is in this code. So please, for me, it shows how little you've prepared to write this code, or like how little you understand about building a house that you have to leave comments littered. This is a window, open it. I know it sounds stupid, but really that's how I look at it. And I think with the right, and this is my experience, by the way, I'm not, I don't know if some of my backend engineers over here, they might tell you a different story. But not having comments forces you to now comment in the code. So the code itself is self-documenting, right? Self-documenting means you name correctly. So if a function is going to reduce your balance, you don't call it deduct, you call it reduce balance. Or you call it reduce, and then you make sure it's taking an object of type balance. Then you now start to see the value of types. If I was writing PHP code, of course I have to comment the hell out of it, because you don't know what's coming in. Is this a string or is this a But if you're writing C++ code, or you're writing Scala code, or you're writing code that has a strong type system, why don't you take advantage of that system? The moment you say static val balance equals, already you're like, okay, so this is a balance that is not going to change, or that is shared by all the objects that are created. Why do I need to say that as a comment? Like, where do you start? Where do you stop with the commenting? Are you guys catching what I'm saying here? Yeah, so anyway, so so for me, and it forces you to name, it forces you to understand the tool that you're using. It forces you to understand how to build a house. So by the time everyone is looking at it, okay, so this is a house, okay. So the databases are going to be there, the APIs are going to be there, the business logic is going to be there, the utilities are going to be there. Immediately you're like, and then you open a file, and oh my god, the equal signs are aligned, the imports are alphabetically ordered. You just start, you get that, you go drink some coffee and you're like, let's do this, like it's easy, you know where to start, you know where to find this stuff, right? So it's kind of that, do you have a framework on how you build this stuff? Once you have that framework, and it might limit your creativity in many ways, but remember, for me, coding is not, the software itself is not where the creativity is. The creativity is in how you put it together. The creativity is in really how do you solve a problem using the software. That's where your creativity shines. That's why it took me 10 years before I got excited about software, until I got into the architecture bit of, oh my god, this software is doing this, and this is amazing. So if you're too, you might not get to the next level of, oh my god, I am building M-Pesa, and this is so cool, and I just bought a loaf of bread using the same platform, and every time I get an SMS and I know it came from AT, it's like, I don't solve that code. That's a good feeling. I mean, that's interesting. And you're in Nigeria, and you're like, wow, okay. Like, that's the power of software. Like, just that ability to get something done. So if you're too focused on a lot of these other small things, you might lose the point. Next. Yeah, then testing. Testing, I always grep dash test pipe to word count line. Test should be more than the code. The number of lines of code you have for testing should be more than the actual business logic. And tests should be, for me, tests should be in the order of, like, you should be able to look at a test file and the code and walk down and know, okay, so I have an actor. The first type I'm processing is increment balance. The first thing I'm testing is increment balance, right? I should be able to look at your test code and reproduce the code that you wrote. And you test everything, test thoroughly. Because that's how we sleep at night. Let me tell you, when we're doing high frequency trading, what we used to do. We used to call it, we used this skill. By the way, if you ran into, there was no, I just got an int, I was expecting a double, let's keep going. You know, no, you die, you kill the whole, you cancel all your orders. And you call the cops. You're like, dude, I got a double, man. This is some bullshit. Why is it not turning into an int? Like, this is not cool. And then that day you don't make any money. So you spend the whole day figuring out. And then before you fix that, you make sure you can reproduce it. So you don't immediately get into you fix the test cases first, because that means your test cases failed to catch this condition. You fix the test cases, and then you now fix the code. You make sure you have a failing test case before you fix the code. So that's how we survive. So obviously, you can play fast and loose if you're not handling millions of dollars. But that is where you should be. You should be in that space where, of course, if a T behaved like that, actually, then SMS would be down. But then it will be down for a month, and then after that, it will never be down. That's actually the experience. It's down, 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 down. You fix, until there is no more noise. And then all of you guys move on to the next thing. Because the thing now just works, right? So there's a lot of especially that discipline that you really need. And sometimes testability should trump all the other architecture decisions you're making. If you're using a framework that is not testable, just don't use it. If you're writing code, for example, sometimes we expose variables that don't need to be used by anyone else just because we want to test them. You understand? So you can hide, and that's where things like C++ shine, because C++ has things like friends. So you can make the test class your friend. I don't think Scala has friends. Scala has no friends. Oh man. Okay, that hit me different. But then you can actually start to make, so you make decisions about how you're gonna design your class depending on, can I actually test everything that's happening in this class, right? Can I, for example, Akka has a way of building distributed applications where at runtime, you could have 3-4 machines working together. But we didn't use that code until they added the way to test it last year. That's when we built Hilarion, actually. They didn't have a way of testing it. They're like, hey, now we have test cases that actually bring up multiple JVMs, and then you see how they are. And you make sure that it's correct. Then you kill one JVM and you make sure it's still correct. In testing. So by the time you're pushing that code and the test cases pass, you know there's a high chance you're going to sleep at night. Now, when it works on your machine and whether it works in the real world, those are two very different. Because in the real world, there's a team called infrastructure. And that's where the shit hits the fan. When the network, the CPU, and that's where the monitoring now comes in. Because you need to make sure the conditions you tested in are similar to what's happening in production. Because I remember initially when we were doing PHP and we were sending 2 SMSs a day, we used to use 256 MB servers. So we used to, and of course we were cutting costs. So we were like, hey, 256 MB. Those days I could read all the SMSs. You are going to receive. I'm like, interesting. That's interesting. Now imagine using 256 MB servers when we are processing 10,000 SMSs. Yes, the tests are passing in your machine, but then the support team is telling you, dude, this thing doesn't work, right? So you need to make sure that your infrastructure team is in sync with the backend team to make sure that, hey guys, when you're running this stuff, because it's backend, it's not our job to run stuff. Well, maybe we could. Maybe Edwin can. Edwin actually, I think, was backend infrastructure, everything. Actually, there's a time I was everything as well. But you can actually see how test cases passing and then working at scale can actually be two very different things. But you should at least be able to simulate the conditions that you expect the infrastructure team to produce for you in production. And if they produce those conditions, then the thing should work. Product knowledge. For me, this is important. When you're a backend engineer, you're building a product. You're not writing code. In fact, the way we work in AT is when you come in, we teach you the frameworks, and then now a lot of what you do is product. So immerse yourself in the product, understand the product. You can't build M-Pesa if you're just, the only people you're talking to are other nerds. You need to talk to the agents, talk to the customer success team, talk to the CEO, be the CEO. I mean, seriously, you need to understand the product. Because you're the one person that can 10x that product. You're the one person that understands, by the way, if today M-Pesa can do this, but if we need to support Visa, this is how we can do it. In a way that is not just a plugin, or if you expose this API, guys can build insurance products. Or if we do this, this can happen. So for me, that ability to understand the product, and you are responsible for the customer experience. The architect is responsible for this experience that we have today, right? So he knew, put some stairs. So you are responsible, even though the customer is a machine. Because a lot of these products, the customer actually ends up. In AT, our customers are machines. Of course, there's the other customer experience of the developer signing in and seeing all the SMSs. But there's the experience of the machine that's sending the SMS. When I say customer, I'm talking about that customer. You're responsible for that experience. So don't build in isolation. Don't lock yourself in a room and assume that you're going to come up with the best customer experience. Make sure you understand the variables. So when I was building voice, for example, I'll tell you, I made a mistake. I thought we were only going to do voice in Kenya. Then suddenly, we got some connectivity in Uganda. Oh man, did I cry. That's when I moved from Python to Scala. You have to rewrite everything. If I had come in with the knowledge of this thing needs to support multiple providers, it would have been a very different product from the ground up. If I knew we need to expose APIs from the ground up, you build a very different experience. If you know that queuing versus not queuing will increase throughput versus latency, different product. If you know that you need to check the balances and change the currencies, different product. So all these things, so understanding the context, understanding the product is very important. And then dive into support, to be honest. Understand the pain. Support, I mean, if you don't do support, who are you building for? You need to understand. What are people complaining about? So be the support engineer. Not forever, but for especially if you release a new feature, be the support engineer. Because trust me, and support guys, I don't want to say they are lazy, but they will call you. They'll be like, it's not working, but you're like, is that a user error? Is that my error? Do I need to change the code? Do I need to redeploy? Is it the database that's down? Is this? So you really start to understand, how does this product operate? It's like building a car and then not observing how people are actually driving that car and using it and where it breaks. Maybe the wheels are rolling off and you're just like, dude, the wheels are rolling off, dude. People are gonna die. So please immerse yourself in support. And then think of new ways, because you are the best at innovating on the product. For example, I came up with shared USSD. I should have patented that shit back in I remember I was sitting down and I was like, I'm looking at the code and I'm like, if we just add an if else here, we can share this USSD and we can make so much money. We'll sell 1,000 shared USSD codes and the margins are gonna be so high. I'm outing us. We do have high margins on shared USSD. But it's just because of a few lines of code. We shared shortcodes, shared this. And you as a backend engineer can be like, actually, yeah, it's actually not difficult. Because for a lot of people, they might be like, how do you share your? But the guy died and, no, but it's just, you grab the string, you concatenate it, and you assign 1 to Graham, 2 to Layla, 3 to this, and boom, and you have your shared USSD. So you can really innovate. You can be like, hey guys, we can support 50 countries. Hey guys, we can do analytics like this. We can give you this data. We can do this. We can, like, literally, it's like now the architect of this house just being like, hey, if we can rearrange it and turn it into a conference room. We can put this part, because you're the one who sees the room, by the way. You are the one. Literally, you're the only one who sees the room the way that the room really looks like. You're the only one who deeply understands. And that's why a lot of Kenyan companies have struggled to innovate, because they don't have people who can see the room. Banks don't have people who understand the room that they're operating in. So they think exposing APIs is so difficult, when really, if someone was in there who understood the room, it's like, just open that window. That's it, that's all you have to do. But they're like, oh, if you open the window and then the people come in, no, they're walking into the kitchen, so you feed them. So you understand, because you understand what happens when you open the room. Even securing the house, you're like, just put a gate over there. If there's a gate, that's it. Imagine if we didn't understand what this house looks like and we're trying to secure it. What are we gonna do? Oh, that window is open, oh my God. Like, you start doing too much. You're doing the most when really all you need to do is just, hey, there's a gate over there. Is there any other entrance into this house? Since you understand the room, you're like, nah. AT, we have signed up so many, we have more than 100,000 developers. This is not a challenge to developers. But we've not really been hacked. It's not a challenge. And if you hack us, by the way, please talk to me personally. We do have employment opportunities. But you can imagine how exposed we are to software developers. People who actually write code. In Kenya, in Nigeria, and Nigerians, when they hack you smooth. It's not, I think, so when Kenyans hack us, do you know what Kenyans do? Here's the difference. Kenyans, they will steal 10 shillings, so they will create many accounts. Nigerians, they will pay us on PayPal, and then they will dispute the transaction after we've topped up. And you're like, wow, this guy just made $4,000. There's a developer in, which university, who created 3,000 accounts. So he could send himself the 10 shillings free of airtime. Calvin actually had to build a lot of code to like detect. So if we give you 10 shillings, we'll never give you 10 shillings. So that's the guy who made sure that you don't get another 10 shillings, right? So, but in terms of understanding where can you get in, how do we secure this, you deeply start to understand what are those entry points and how do you secure it, because you know what the room looks like. So backend is actually at the heart of the product. It's the one that really dictates security, dictates even the front end. When you're building the front end, what can I show you? What authentication scheme am I using? What can I show you? The last, I think we had a 10,000 message limit. It just caused a lot of grief in AT. That was a backend decision. Hey, if we bring in more than 10,000 messages, we're gonna kill this server. So so you start to affect the entire experience of the company, not just the whole company starts to be affected by that experience. And that's why you become the focal point, you become the person who everyone comes to and is like, that's why I've remained CEO, because guys are like, I wanna get rid of this guy, but he knows too much. He knows too much. That's because you understand the room. You understand the room. I think I talked about support. So support, understand the pain you have caused. Actually, I think that's what I want to say. Please understand the pain that you have caused to your users, to your support people. If you find a condition you do not understand, talk about it openly. Be very open about, hey, I don't understand what's happening. And being open means, we actually have a service called Snoop internally that yells and screams and sends SMSs and calls people and says, this service is dead. Actually, I think I'll talk to Leila about the well-being aspect of some of those messages that we sent. So imagine you're hanging out in a club and you see, oh, Hydra is dead. Oh man, like that just, and then 2 minutes later, Hydra is alive, and then Hydra is dead. How are you gonna sleep? And Hydra is just dying randomly. And so just be very vocal about, especially with payments, for example, there's always a need. Like when we're building payments and airtime, you're like, Safaricom has not responded, so just say Safaricom has not responded. Throw up your hands. I don't like that's an error condition. Let someone deal with it. If it becomes too much, then just get into an Uber and go to Safaricom and be like, guys, you guys are not responding. Right? Don't try and be the hero. and hide and pretend that this software is going to be perfect. Right? So just be effusive about that. Robust error reporting, and I think that's something you really have to build into the backend. Like if you look at our code, there's a lot of, you import this actor and it will report every error that happens. So when you meet something you don't like, you throw an error. You throw. And then now the cool thing is, you can now monitor how many errors you're getting. And that tells you, by the way, Redis is the one that's misbehaving. Redis, it's Cassandra. It's the memory errors. It's Safaricom. It's this, it's that. Because these errors will happen when you tested in these conditions, in production that these other conditions. Yeah, and write errors that make sense to humans, by the way. It doesn't help anyone if you say object.string is nullable. Dude, has not been null. I mean, like, come on, man. Just be like, hey, this message could not be sent because I don't know the currency. You know, like something, like just say something that makes sense. Because humans are gonna read, and they will tune off, and then now you become the support engineer suddenly. Yeah. And then for language, I think I've talked about this. So really pick a powerful, expressive language. I cannot stress that enough. Pick a powerful, expressive language. And I'm not hating on any language. There's different languages for different roles. If you're building M-Pesa backend, pick a powerful, expressive language. I hear some startups doing payments are using Node.js. I will not name names. Pick a powerful, expressive language. Because you don't want to start with a balance and you end up with a cost. You don't want to start with a male and you end up with a female. You don't want to start with an int and you end with a double. You know, that sounds like, hey, but you can force one type into the other. No, you don't. You don't want to do that. So pick a language that forces you. You don't want to create 10 users because it's not static. You don't want to have like the cost not be static. The cost should be static. The balance should not be static. The cost should be constant. The balance should not be constant. You don't want to have a balance. You don't want to, actually, the compiler, oh man, I forgot that I should have a whole talk on the compiler. The compiler is your best friend. That compiler, man, has I think even Scala, at some point, they used to tell you all the errors. They would tell you there's 5,000 errors in the code. Nowadays, they tell you up to 100, which I don't know how I feel about that. Because I'm like, is there 2,000 errors? But then, those errors that the compiler will pick. And then there's the warnings as well. The warnings are very important. You've imported a package that you're not using. You've imported a class you're not using. You have a variable that's not used. Because those things may seem like, hey, it's all good, you know. I can imagine running a compiler on some of our PHP code. The compiler would just give up. It's like, dude, I know this code works, but holy crap. Isn't there a lot going on that you don't understand, right? So really getting to that point where the compiler helps you, you know, and then learn to love language. This is like, it's always an acquired taste. There is no language that is fun. Is there a language that's fun? Kikuyu, maybe. I mean, Python can be fun, but then once it tells you some error about tabs and spaces, you're like, so there's space. And then there's Python 3 versus, I mean, all languages will throw you in all manner of directions, right? So you can say, but you see, you think it's fun. I think Scala is fun, but I had to learn to love it. I had to be like, hey, this is the hill I'm gonna die on. So when Scala tells me I'm gonna infer the type, I get excited. I'm like, yes. You mean you do that for me? Wow, that's so cool. That's like going on a date. You know, like you learn to love it. You find reasons to love it, right? Because that's the tool that you've chosen to help. It's like if you're gonna build with timber, you learn to love it. You learn to love the guys who cut the trees. I don't know why, but you learn to love them, right? Because that's what you're using. I'm not saying people cut trees for Scala. That's and then don't get distracted. Distractions, I swear there's so much noise. You're learning Scala and then Calvin comes and tells you about Rust and how the crate system is amazing and you can you can manage the memory yourself and you're like, you start feeling inadequate. The Node guys are telling you how, you can chain all these futures and blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh man, I am a horrible programmer. I don't even know what a crate is, man. Sounds like cool stuff. And then you spend the next 2 weeks investigating Rust. And then you start building on Rust. And then you realize Rust does not have a library for currency conversion. So you have to write your own. Or you have to use the one that's buggy, that's just been released yesterday by some Russian who has backdoored into his own. Like, what? Just be adequate. Know that you are sufficient the way you are. And don't get distracted. And the language is just a tool, really, at the end of the day. It's just a tool. So what you can do with Rust, you can probably do with Scala. You can do with PHP. That's all I'm saying. You can actually do it with PHP. And PHP has made strides. I don't think anyone is paying attention, but they have. Or some people are actually paying attention. They've actually made strides. So maybe today you can actually do it with PHP. Who knows? PHP has things like futures now and mutexes and all those things. Those things have come. They've shown up. Right? So those things exist. So just if you love the tool, it can actually work for you in all these purposes. But then also evaluate the tool before you love it. Don't just get into a room because everyone is in the room. Like, be like, is this tool expressive enough? And from my experience, Scala has been very expressive for us. It has its issues, it works, you can find as many articles hating on Scala as you can find loving Scala. So actually maybe more hating, I don't know. Like, there's always a very heated debate with Scala. Especially because the Java guys have caught feelings. So like, you should be required to write static const main star var args before you can start. Scala is like, you don't need that. Just start the class and put your code in there. And then the Java guys catch feelings. They're like, no, you need, every time you have to say the type. Scala is like, no, I'll infer the type. So I think that actually I'm starting to understand the hate. I guess there's some Java guys. Anyway. And then all languages will be pedantic and boring. That's just it. Like an if statement will be pedantic and boring. There'll always be things, these things, you're talking to a freaking computer that understands 0 and 1. So at the end of the day, you're not learning French. This is not Romance or Kikuyu or Somali. Like, it's gonna be boring. You're talking to the most boring 0-1 on-off register that we've invented that is extremely powerful. So just push through to the other side. And once you're on the other side, you realize actually that pain, you can actually now go to therapy and heal from it. Actually, I've had a whole slide. I actually do have a slide on therapy. It's important. Some people are scared. Framework. Pick a powerful framework and then test its boundaries. So if you pick a framework and it cannot connect to databases, it's probably not the right framework. If it can't allow you to express certain common problem-solving patterns, like I always go to FSMs, because I'll tell you guys a secret. Everything is just one massive FSM. That's it. Every time I run into an, guy is looking at me like, what's this serious? Every time I run into an edge condition, and then I put in an FSM, it becomes simpler. Because the FSM suddenly narrows your problem space and allows you to express the problem in much simpler terms. And if you have a language that can allow you to now code that very easily, oh my God, that's a powerful framework. That's why I think Akka is one of the most powerful. Akka allows you to express FSMs that are stateful. So Ilarion is built on that concept. I'm a finite state machine, I'm a human being, I'm in this state. And if this machine dies, I can be created in this other machine in the same state. And in that state, these are the things. I am broke, so don't ask me for money. I can't pay you anything, blah, 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 blah. So the code, when I am broke, is very simple. Please, donations, find a job, blah, blah, blah. If I'm not broke, donate, pay bills. You understand? So it really breaks down, because for me, it's all about how do you get to that, like, the here now. How do you live in the moment? Not, signal versus noise again. FSM is all about signal versus noise. If you're not coding in the FSM world, there's a lot of noise. Oh, I'm broke, but I'm being told to attend a fundraising. That's noise. As far as I'm concerned, I'm broke. I am broke. Dude, don't tell me to. So you see, now if you can express those concepts in a language, it's incredibly powerful. And of course, this framework has access to the entire JVM ecosystem. Again, Java guys are pissed off because we're getting their code for free. That's the cool thing with Scala. You can actually pull any Java language, any Java library and use it freely and throw it away as you need. So, so find a framework that actually gives you that ecosystem that is vibrant, that is robust, and master the framework. Contribute to it even. I mean, we have actually still haven't contributed to Arca. I know we actually worked for these guys, for Lightbed, so he knows. He has us contribute when we were trying to figure out the length of an SMS. We didn't have time. But I would love it if out of this whole exercise, we take over Arca, because they have slowed Arca down dramatically. Why can't we take it over and contribute to it and deeply understand it? And then don't get distracted again, same thing with the language. Just run, keep going. I've been doing Arca for the last 8 years. So I know it inside out. Actually, we implemented a timer, persistent timer. They reviewed it for a whole week, trying to figure out if it works or not. And eventually they were like, holy shit, you've actually, I think I contributed actually with that code. So a timer that will fire whenever it needs to fire and has a relay mechanism. So those kinds of things that you can actually now contribute back to the language. And focus on the customer experience. I can't stress that enough. The most important thing is that it's not, your experience is important. Your experience, you can work on it, you can sieve through the pain, but the customer experience is the most. If Arca did not give the customers the experience they want, then I wouldn't use it as a framework. But it does. It does. Does it use more memory than C++? Yes. Is the code more verbose or less elegant than if you write pure functional code? Than Zio, for example, some of these new frameworks? Yeah, it is. But does it give the same experience that you get with C++, with Zio, with all these other frameworks you might learn? It actually does. Do I understand how it works? Yes. Again, this is my experience. Now you might pick another framework, and it will actually be great to start getting to a diversity of frameworks, because at the end of the day, we're trying to solve for the customer. So there's other frameworks that we can also go deep in. That's something that we could also look at. Do not repeat yourself. I know I've repeated myself so many times in this presentation. I should not have done that. So definitely use a framework that promotes reuse. I don't know how reuse works in things like PHP, actually. Maybe there's ways. In the JVM ecosystem, there's massive ways for you to reuse code. You can publish it to Maven. You can import. Import is like built into the language. I'm sure the Rust guys will say the same. So just create libraries early and share them often. I think that's one mistake we made with AT. We didn't abstract out the common code until much later. So we didn't build that culture. So right now, I'm probably the only contributor to the core libraries. I hope there'll be more people that can contribute to the core libraries. So these are the libraries that do queuing, that do real-time analytics, that do database connectivity, caching, authentication, all these different core things that can be shared around cache management, currency conversions, all that stuff. So how can we make that ecosystem robust? Because that just simplifies everyone's work. And that library is tested to death across all products. And microservices help. But I'll tell you something about actors. Every actor is a microservice. So when the microservice movement was starting, I'm like, actually, we've been using microservices since day one. So you can have a monolith, quote unquote, but it's actually tons of microservices. You have a billing service, you have a authentication service, you have a persistent service, you have a messaging service, and these are all services, and there is a well-defined contract between them. So the whole microservice movement is actually built into the Arca framework. So find a framework where that is actually, and I can't think of a framework or a problem-solving paradigm where microservice is such a first-class construct. It's the construct that's used to drive concurrency, the whole Arca framework. So for me, it really worked for me. But hey, I'm sure there's similar, constructs in other languages that you could also look at. Microservices are very important, especially because of testability. If I can test billing in isolation, and the test cases pass, when an issue happens, I know it's not billing that caused it. So that's very important. Performance, Horizontal scaling is the only way to scale. I swear to God. I mean, we try to scale vertically. Ultimately, we have to get away from MySQL. Because MySQL, I don't know who has scaled MySQL horizontally. Maybe, I don't know, Conrad, have you done it? MySQL, the only way to scale is to add more memory, right? And then we made a blunder when we scaled. Oh, you scaled it horizontally? Oh no, slaves, that's not scaling, that's just availability. So I'm talking about scaling where if you have 1 terabyte of data, you can distribute that across multiple servers. Because the slave in MySQL will be a copy of the master, right? So you still need 1 terabyte servers. Now with other databases like Cassandra, you can actually distribute that across. Yeah, with partition, yeah. And that's how you scale horizontally, you partition, right? Right. I actually remember writing partitioning code in PHP back in the day. I think we had a MySQL database had almost 300 million rows. Oof, boy. Every time one of our big customers logged in, we used to sweat because we were just waiting for that database to die. And that goes all the way to the framework you use. Some frameworks, PHP may not allow you to scale horizontally, right? Unless you write some custom logic. Now with frameworks like Akka, you can scale horizontally using code that they've given you. In fact, when you're writing Akka, you're not even thinking about scaling horizontally. The person who thinks about scaling horizontally is the person who deploys your code. So you could build services and then at deployment, distribute those services across multiple machines. In your code as well, you can determine how many actors do I want to bring up to handle billing. So maybe for billing, you bring up 10 actors and you specify this is the thread pool they're going to use. And these actors will be in server A and B. And then for this authentication service, I'll bring up 5 actors, they'll be in server C and D. For the next service, I bring up 10 actors, they'll be in server E and F. So you can really start to distribute the load, right? And the promise is you can really add these servers without compromising on the performance. So these lookups are really fast. So these servers are always gossiping. They're always gossiping and saying, hey, who's handling what, right? So horizontal scaling is actually built into, it's a very, very powerful framework. So if you, and maybe there's other frameworks that give you that out of the box. I would love to know what they are. Of course, Erlang has a very strong actor implementation. So with Erlang, and that's what WhatsApp actually was built on. It was built on Erlang. So you can use that as well. But then the power of Akka is the fact that you can also add persistence to those actors. So as you're scaling them around, you can kill a server, bring it up somewhere else, and have the state be pulled from a database. So these are all things that we can talk about just to see how this works. Yeah, and learn how to work with databases, because at the end of the day, performance is network driven. It's not your CPU that's gonna, unless you're doing, cancer, machine learning research. If you're moving SMSs around or you're moving payments around, it's not gonna be the CPU that's gonna bind your performance, it's gonna be the network. Now the network, of course, feeds back into the CPU, because the network is what's gonna slow down your threads. So you need to learn about databases, you need to learn about are you using databases that can really handle multiple connections. When you're specifying your TPS for your application, it's always going to be the database that tells you, hey, you think you can handle 10,000 requests per second, but really all you can do is 10, because you're using MySQL. I'm not hating on MySQL here, but I love you, MySQL. Actually, for MySQL, what we do is we cache. We only store small amounts of data and we cache. So we don't even talk to MySQL. Every time you send an SMS, we don't talk to MySQL. We talk to it every 2 minutes. And we fetch everything, put it in memory, and then we talk to memory. That's a lot faster. So understand how different use cases, how different types of data should be handled, because that's where your performance is going to die. Of course, you can also shoot yourself in the foot in the way you write code. There's something called await in JavaScript. Now, if you're moving from JavaScript to Scala, please do not call await. The moment you call await, you're slowing everything down. You're blocking everything. I remember that used to give me nightmares. I used to ask Salama, who's our JavaScript expert, why do you have so many awaits? He's like, dude, no, it's okay. I mean, I think if you walked in here and asked him why there's so many awaits, because an await in Scala, unless you're doing it on startup, when you're starting up the whole application and you await because you need to read something from the database. If you do it in the middle, then there'll be a support request coming at you. So on the code as well, you can shoot yourself in the foot. Of course, you can also shoot yourself. You can create too many objects. You can use the wrong types. You can use a list when you should use a hash map and start iterating over the list to find an element. So you can start doing things that will slow you down. But really, at the end of the day, the DBs, that's it. And of course, never block on the critical path. Of course, you can get overwhelmed. And to overcome your DB issues, use queuing. Accept queue. Accept queue and then work on it later, if there is things that allow you to queue. If I'm sending you an SMS about happy birthday, it doesn't matter if it comes at 7 a.m. or 7:30 or 7:49. Unless, of course, if it does, then maybe you also need to figure out, because that's your issue, not mine. Yeah, and then I talked about caching to really avoid network paths. So if you're hitting a network path and the path, whatever is behind the path is small enough to be put in memory, put it in memory. So you don't have to hit that network path. So these are some of the things. And by the way, I know this sounds really complicated, but if you avoid the noise and follow the signal, you'll actually start to really understand. Because if you live here and you really want to become an expert with this stuff, but then you start learning PHP, sorry PHP man, but that's noise. That's if this is your path. If this is your path, then you figure out, okay, so what technology do I need to learn? And then how do these things behave at scale? How do they perform? Laziness. Laziness is an optimization. Yes. I talked about being slow. I talked about, but being lazy. Yes. I will share the slides. Because I wrote this. I guess I don't know.
There's a recording too.
There's a recording. So I think we're almost there, right? On the lessons at least. And I'm quite lazy, so I also let's talk about laziness and see where we land, right? And I understand there's information overload, but then remember, this is something that we are starting. This is not like the only time we're going to be talking about these things. Actually, what I want to do is develop a curriculum where we can really dive into these things with examples, right? So where we can say, okay, now today we're talking about laziness. Of course, no one will show up. But let me tell you how laziness is an optimization. You could decide we're going to build a conference hall here because it is going to be hosting events, and you start writing the code. And then tomorrow, the business decides, actually, we just got a cheap deal to do it in Mudangari Primary, so we're going to use Dude, you should be lazy. Don't do it. I wait until the last minute until I do something. It can be annoying. But it's an optimization. It's like, let me wait for the next company meeting before I make this. The Illyrian, for example, the next version of Illyrian, I have waited. I have not touched that code in 6 months because I was like, I need to wait. And then when you start writing the code, just be lazy about it. Like, don't rush. Slow down, be lazy, walk around, talk to your friends. And really, that's a lot. Actually, Scala, a lot of languages have a lazy keyword. What it means is only instantiate this variable if you need to instantiate it, right? So only do this if, like only use the balance, especially if the balance is behind some heavy calculation. Why do you want to instantiate it now? Instantiate it if it needs to be instantiated. In many cases, maybe you never connect to the database, right? So why do you need to do that expensive operation of connecting to the database? If you look at the code and you're like, there's a chance this will never happen, right? Of course, there is also a case where maybe you want to warm up the connection, so you don't want that fast request to be slow, blah, blah, blah. So maybe you need to warm it up or whatever. But think about now the house and the architecture and what it means. And then, obviously, maybe there is an engineering solution. That's always the case. Actually, I have some very enthusiastic engineers sometimes. Whenever there's an engineering solution, they're running. Yeah, we're gonna write this code. I'm like, if we just increase the price, we don't need to do it. So why so then they're happier, they go home to their wives and kids, and there's no trauma they're taking home. Suddenly the quality of life improves because we were lazy. It helps. You see even how I don't have a curriculum, but I was like, let me do this presentation first. And then now maybe we come up with a curriculum. And I hear you. This is a lot of material. So now how do we stretch this out? How do we turn this into something so that at the end of the day, any of you can stand here and say this? Of course, that's if you want to build this kind of stuff. Of course, you could also be sitting here and yeah.
Just to clarify, I think he was asking when are we having a break. Was that your question?
Thank you for translating.
Yeah, I don't think you heard that bit. That's why I
No,
can
yeah,
see
yeah,
something was
yeah.
being disconnected here. So I think he was asking this, you want to hear this, but is there a break coming? Yeah, there's
So do you guys need a comfort break?
I think that's what they were asking.
Kago, if you need a break, you can.
I'll be free.
I will hold for 5 minutes just because my wife obviously have to go home to her, and So if you want to change the experience, please talk to her. She's so yeah. So can we take a break? Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Wow. 2 hours.
I'm not sitting this empty table and I'm sitting over there.
No, I was here to encourage the chiefs. We are sat at the back.
I'm good.
Good stuff, good
I was a
stuff.
bit late. I actually started
Having to be in there for a second.
I know.
How is it on the live stream?
Yeah, I was posting it, no problem.
Yeah, feedback. It's very good.
The live stream is actually very good. Actually, I was like, my logic was like, why am I watching it from home?
That's the place. Literally is the place.
Oh, Twitter's place is this place.
Sam, you need to be doing this more. You made for this.
Sorry?
You are paid for this. You need to do this more.
No, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, you paid for this.
How are you doing? Great to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you. How are you? Hey, nice.
Times.
Hey, I don't know.
Really? Imekuwa couple of months sending here for each other. But yeah, good.
How are things?
Well, still
Yeah.
well. We are actually we need to
The most attentive. How do you measure that? The most attentive.
But so far so good. I know, man. There's a number.
A million messages a day. I'm like,
Yeah, that's what we consider like a product. Most of our attention is on the new stuff. So the fact that it is like voice is taking off, we're getting more mission critical use cases on our platform, making good margins on it as well. So it's anchoring the business. The fact that SMS in a gold, work on it a long time ago.
And there's no bus system. You know, when they enter, that's the first thing they look for.
Show up.
If there's a bus,
Scala enthusiast. Scala a lot more nowadays, so I thought it would have been a nice one to discuss.
nikiarchitecture kwanza kabla niingie madefense za Scala.
Yeah. No, that counts. That counts. We need go around, so maybe Chabonga in them.
Sawa.
Nice seeing you.
Sawa.
I used to come to your offices around 2017. We're building a bulk SMS platform for employees.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Happened. Been shooting, right? Yeah. That's you. Yeah. How are you? You're at Microsoft now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How is it going over there?
So far it's okay.
Yeah.
I like the. student wants to be doing stuff that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of working on building tools and other things to build APIs.
Ah, okay.
So building a library and building service. And I don't come from Graph.
No.
So it's kind of a library that kind of gets all of Microsoft APIs and things on APIs.
Ah, okay.
So part of our team built the tooling that validates the API to ensure that the standards like automatic checks.
Ah, okay.
Then part of our team built the libraries that some of them use to ensure that the APIs like have the same feature examples, like if you want to query data, do it, like standards how to query, how to automate. So we use the library that they use for that. And what I kind of doing is kind of like making sure the libraries are performant and they try to reduce the overhead and stuff like that. But still working on this
We should figure out how we can actually, if you, I think as we open source in area, we probably need similar use cases where it's, because I remember you came for the Hilarion, the first Hilarion conversation. You got some really good questions actually. I was like you deeply understand what we're trying to do. And it'd be interesting to see how we can, how we can build around it.
We no longer build everywhere at the moment, so we kind of give up on that. Right now, we're familiar with tools like Metabase.
Okay.
Metabase or Tableau or we're building something like that.
Okay. So you're competing with Microsoft?
Well, we're not at that scale.
Pretty much.
Let's say right now we're trying to target Metabase as a competitor.
Yeah.
We're not at the competitor. We're trying to make this sound like easy for everyone to do like visualization and analytics. Just requiring like to go to developers. So we're kind of doing a launch of our MVP of September.
Okay, oh nice.
So right now we're doing like we're still working on it. We're doing demos with like potential clients. If you're interested, very interested, we can do a demo for you and they can give us some tips. Yeah, so that's where we are right now.
Send me the link. I'll be happy to look at it.
So we've been trying to do like what you guys do with the area, like creating a community, live community. So we've done that. Right now we have like
Oh really? No, it's a start.
Yeah, so we're kind of sharing updates and getting feedback and stuff like that.
Oh nice.
Yeah, so right now we support MySQL. We can connect to MySQL databases. We're thinking of adding either Postgres and DB support. The analytics tools don't have good support for DB. Taking a break and then continue. Yeah, so I think like if we can do something good for DB, we can like give selling points because not many tools support DB.
That's interesting. Maybe you can support Hilarion.
Definitely.
That would be interesting to understand, because that's gonna be one of the big. Although we wanna get rid of the data lake, and with data privacy, that whole field is gonna be turned upside down. It's gonna go the Web3 route where the data belongs to the company, not to the business. The business can only work with aggregates. So that's I think it might be interesting to see how your tool can surface aggregates and surface.
Actually, that's something
anonymized data.
If it's a data source, more than happy to see how we can do
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. Good stuff. Thanks for coming for this.
They have always wanted to hear you in person. These are questions I've always wanted to ask you, but maybe I'll ask you the Q&A. Just curious how you manage such I don't know if I should ask you now or wait till the end.
You can ask in the Q&A.
Okay.
Good stuff. How big is your team?
We have 5 people.
Mostly Microsoft or?
The ones you have for Microsoft. And then one of us is a student, one of us is a PhD student, and one of us is not, and we want to kind of do it full time. So 3 of us are like the engineers. One of them is actually a quant engineer. Sometimes he does engineering, sometimes he does not. Because she has like a tech background, so sometimes she comes in and a feature we didn't think about. But other times she's doing like you're trying to do something where you can ask questions in English and then it can show you the game. And then something that you can query in the backend. So how people have approached this problem and how you can do it in a way that, regardless of the backend that you're doing, we just ask the question and you figure out how to process it the right way. But the database and everything, the database, the charts, whatever. But that's still right now you can have like a drag and drop interface. You kind of just drag the things you want to see and then generate the query. But okay.
Anyway, yeah, so let's keep talking.
So far, so good.
Yeah, definitely.
It is very legit.
Yeah. You have my email?
20 minutes.
Gikandi at aftertalking.
Just
send me the link. I can look at it. I'm good. Everything is okay. Brilliant. Actually, no, go for it. My jugus are your jugus. I misspelled this, my lesson. Elon Musk was like, there should be an edit button on Twitter.
I totally agree. But it sounded like a me lesson.
Sorry?
It sounded like me lesson.
These
are my lessons.
It should have been my lesson. My lesson.
Me lesson.
Yeah. That's very Nigerian.
Maybe with a comma there, it would make a lot of sense.
Sorry? Sorry?
5 more slides.
Oh, 5 more slides, yeah.
Then after that,
these 5 more lessons?
Yeah, 5 more lessons.
Are you serious? Okay. Oh my god, these ones are heavy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was a good break. Let's continue. Are you learning anything? Is it worth it? Should we keep doing it? Nice. Yeah, maybe I forgot to mention this. So in case you wanna maybe use the bathroom or maybe stretch a little bit, feel free to walk as much as not a distraction. So you're welcome to take a walk, grab some water or some coffee, and feel free. That's all. And if you came after introduction, feel welcome. This is a tea. And yes, just to mention, we'll have a small networking session after this as we have lunch. Welcome back, Sam.
Alright. Are we still here? Actually, I needed a break. Thank you, Cargo Man. I didn't realize, I didn't realize how many lessons. Anyway, sorry. I'm so sorry, guys. I will be more cognizant of my own well-being and your well-being going forward. So, just thank you for that meaningful, heartfelt. Yes, thank you. So I think we've talked a lot about laziness. I hope you guys appreciate the lesson of laziness. I think we all need that lesson. Slow down, be lazy. Your mind is so powerful, and sometimes when you're lazy, that's when it works. It really surfaces what needs to happen, and that's something all these products we've built were built lazily, believe it or not. Yeah. Next lesson, work environment. Yeah. So for me, work environment, environment is everything. Think about a tree. If you plant a tree in the wrong environment, it will die. You plant a tree in the right environment, it will live forever. So work environment is so critical, and that's where a lot of things go wrong. Where you have brilliant people, but you have the wrong environment. And that is something that we have really struggled with, even in AT. How do you create a work environment that allows engineers to grow? And initially, and what I realized is you need a healthy mix of structure and freedom. Early on, go for structure. So early on, really teach these lessons. Teach how do we build software, how does AT work, what are the patterns, because it's all about patterns. What patterns do we use? How do you get things done? And then let go. So I'll give you an example. So about 2 years ago, I used to review, maybe 2-3 years ago, I used to review every line of code that went into the backend. Every line of code. Every developer would come in and they wrote, I've written a new module to connect to M-Pesa, and it does this. Code review. Code review. And it was amazing. And the code reviews were amazing for these engineers because then they learn. They learn how I think, they learn how I problem solve. And I was reviewing the product as well. Because actually when you're reviewing code, you're reviewing the product. But then I realized I'm not growing. I'm not growing, and I'm like, okay, so one day I just stopped. I remember I had 40 pending reviews. And some of these reviews would take like a week. So it takes a week, I give the comments, takes another week. And I realized I'm actually becoming a bottleneck for the engineers. As much as I feel like I'm helping them, I'm also being a bottleneck. So what we did was like, okay, I'm gonna stop reviewing code, and we're gonna set up an academy. So we teach you the basics. We teach you the basics. This is, and of course the prerequisites, Scala, control, loops, actors, akka, blah, 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 the basics. And for 3 months, same thing we did with Morgan Stanley. For 3 months, there is no expectation. You just learn with your peers. And you come in as a group of people that are learning. And then once you're out of there, you're on your own. And oh my God, I haven't touched a piece of the backend code in years. And the company is growing. So you realize these engineers just need freedom to explore and come to their own conclusions and write their own software and make their own mistakes and cause issues in production and be yelled at and lose sleep and work at night. And ultimately, they find their way. So today, AT, for example, for all our products, we have maybe 4 or 5 backend engineers. I say 4 or 5 because I don't even know if it's 4 or 5. I mean, very few engineers. And they handle everything. So when you're sending messages to Gambia, to Ghana, when you're making calls, when you're processing payments, when you're sending airtime, when you're processing USSD, very small team. In fact, a lot of my engineers left because there wasn't work. on the back end. They were here, they're like, hey, there's not too much work, right? So you actually, once you leave, guys, they grow astronomically. Because human beings, we're just like trees, we want to grow, that's it. In fact, we were put on this earth to grow, and when you stop growing, you start dying. We all want to grow. So if you create the right environment, where people can see, even the CEO is writing code, even they can even be the CEO. Why won't they grow? They will grow. So for me, that's very important. And give them hard problems to solve. Hard problems to solve, lots of responsibility. Throw them into the deep end. That's it. And guys will get, and if you have the right environment, the ones who will sink, they will leave. The ones who are like, this is too much for me, they will leave. The ones who love it, they will grow. They will grow. That's it. So just trust that you hired right, that you hired smart people who are motivated, that you had people who know what they want to do, and give them the space to grow. It's actually that simple. All these other things we put in, no. And reward success. High reward for success. And high reward doesn't have to be money. It's walking around Nairobi being like, don't you know I'm the one who sent those SMSs? that is a reward. That is like, I am responsible for that product. If I go into a meeting, people listen to me because I know the room, I know the whole house. So, so it's such a reward. Being an architect is so rewarding. It's so rewarding. You know the ins and outs. So, so you're in your comfort zone. So really it's that simple. And then zero politics. Politics, please, just clear out the politics. And politics is about power. And I'm not even talking about office. Politics is about power. It's about who's the president and who's the, who's voting for Jacoya or not. Like, yes, are we putting up our hands? Politics is about power, so distribute the power. Give everyone the power. And do you know what power is? Power is information. Distribute the information. This is a session of distributing power. This is something I could have gone and not shared this with anyone and felt like that's my power because I know I will slow down, I will do this and you will not, and I will get there faster. But that's insane. That's a very scarcity mentality. Because I'm sure in 5 years there'll be so many better architects than me who will sit here and be like, hold my beer, let me show you how we build this stuff. Let me show you how you do it with PHP. You did it with Scala, I'll do it with PHP. Let me show you. I'm waiting for that engineer who will show up and be like, we've invented the new framework for PHP that, what is Akka? Like, what is this? Right? So that's what happens when you hold on to power. You hold on to it and no one benefits. You hold on to information. Sometimes I walk into meetings, like I walk into the messaging meeting, SMS. What do I know about SMS that someone who is talking to customers every day does not know? That's the person who has all the information. So if I walk in with my power as Sam and I tell him, you need to increase the length of the SMS that you're sending, he'll be like, no, you don't. Because I know that product better than you do. I'm the one that needs the power in this conversation, not you. So I can bring my perspective. I can say, look, I know Redis will misbehave, but hey, the person who's talking to the customer needs that power. He needs to tell me, hey, Sam, shut up. You don't know what you're saying. And I should be like, oh my God, kindly teach me. And I've had to do a lot of work to get to that point. It's a lot of work on myself to get to that point where you're not walking around wielding the... Actually, I remember when MK was doing the invites for he called me product geek. And I took offense and I need to apologize. I was like, why aren't you calling me CEO? Funny, I look like a what? Right? So you can see it's continuous work. It's continuous work. But for me, there is no better environment than where you walk in and you feel like whatever change you want made is actually going to happen. So in AT, actually, anyone can suggest a change and it will be done. Or it will be given the space. You can be in a meeting and be like, hey, I think we should all wear whatever Sam is wearing, because it's cool, right? And people will actually be like, actually, maybe we should. Look at how many people have dreadlocks in AT. So many people, it's cool, it's okay. There's no judgment, so it's that, how do you create, and that is some of the hardest work that And if you don't build that in that, but I don't want to call it a company because we're just a bunch of people creating value. If you don't build that from the ground up, it won't be long before someone here is the Oga, you know, he's the one who knows. There's suddenly I want to do this, I want to do that. And it's about just now, how do we expand our consciousness to really be comfortable, to be just another player in the room. I'm just another guy in the room sharing my experience. And I'd love to hear your experiences. Like, that's it. So for me, that environment where it's that's why open source software is the best software in the world. There's no CEO of MySQL. Well, there is a CEO of well, I guess, but you can see you catch my drift. Who's the CEO of Apache? Flink. No one knows. Look at Linus. Linus, by day 2, he was like, I need to share this with the world. You look at Linus Torvalds now, he has a treadmill in his, you're like, this guy, he should be the richest man in the world. But he's okay, because you don't need to be the richest man in the world. It's a vanity metric. And once you're the richest man in the world, you're just dealing with the shame of being the richest man in the world. The shame. You know, that's why you spend all your time trying to help eradicate malaria. No, it's true. Money equals shame. I swear to God, on both ends. Yes, without money there is shame. With money there is shame. So money actually, once you remove money from the equation, and shame is the most powerful emotion. It makes you do things that don't make sense. So so for me, I think that shedding the ego and really saying, hey, this is sufficient, this is adequate, and actually, if we share abundantly, we will live in a very abundant world, because abundance will be the word. Abundance of money, of value, of creativity, of everything. That's how you beat the West. Look at the West. Look at the West today. And they're pointing weapons at each other, like they're about to finish each other. Jesus Christ. So do we want to build that? Have you seen an African country invade another African country? We don't do that. Those are our brothers. Well, I mean, we've seen tribes invade other tribes, but how am I going to invade a Somali when I'm also Somali? Not the way they invaded over there, it's different. So then coaching and mentoring, this is another big area. How do you just ensure the new engineers are not lost? Make sure they have the knowledge. Like, invest in training, just don't throw someone into the deep end, but make sure that they know where the lifeboat is. Give them the space to swim, but give them some lifeboats. Give them that room to just explore, but then also, hey, deep end ni hivi, shallow end ni, like, at least they know, So, teach core concepts that increase context. What I'm doing is, I am teaching core concepts that increase context, right? So you have context, you know why this is happening. You know how this happens. That's it. Just the basic, it's like a train. This is the railroad, so that's it. But the train will decide when to go, how fast to go, all this. Right? Review code to catch early mistakes, and then let them go. Actually, today I do code reviews on demand. If an engineer feels like, Sam, I need your opinion on how to solve this problem, that's when I review the code. We have very ad hoc meetings where we are all in the room, and some engineer will be like, I've been using Redis to do this, but I'm experimenting with this other framework. What do you think? And it's not even, Sam, what do you think? It's like, guys, what do you think? Right? Or some engineer will just tell me, Sam, I made some complex change to the payments code. I think this one is sensitive. Can you review it? Right? So it's like, hey, you grow at your own pace. But you grow, but what happens is you actually grow, because it is in your human nature to grow. Everyone is here because we all want to grow, including myself. I want to grow. That's why I'm here, right? So if you just create that environment, people will actually grow. And review the product, not the code. I mean, I know initially before we had a course, I was very annoying because I used to review the code. I'm like, dude, why aren't these things alphabetically ordered, right? But then ultimately, I was like, okay, let me just have a course. Guys go through it. They understand this is how we want to do it in AT. Because, and I'll tell you something. Alphabetical ordering may sound very useless, but it allows me to look at a class, and in 2 seconds know this guy is importing HTTP, so he's talking to a gateway. He's importing this database. He has MySQL. He's using a cache, and there's some hex encoding. There's some hash algorithm that he's using, and yeah. And then these are the AT specific libraries. So before I even look at the code, I know what you're doing. I know before I could review that product right there. Like, why are you talking to the gateway when you're still authenticating the credentials? You shouldn't do that. You know, like, why are you connecting to the database and you don't have a cache? Like, why are you connecting to MySQL every time an SMS is coming in when you know MySQL is gonna struggle? So those kinds of things that, if the imports were all over the place, it's not easy to see what's going on. So those simple things that suddenly reinforce and make it easier for you to just quickly look at what's going on and then understand how the product, because the most important thing is not the code, it's the product. The product is what matters. And obviously, create space for other engineers to innovate and contribute. I think that's something we're starting to do, and I think that's where our open source drive is coming from. How do we bring in more engineers? How do we create space for more engineers to just innovate, contribute, and even help engineers build products? We want to take this all the way. Open source, but then if there's a commercial opportunity, hey, this is AT Labs coming back, right? How do we build stuff together? And you know, if we're in this room and we are all part of this community, if one of us wins, if one of us becomes Bill Gates, guys, what type of car do you want to drive? That's what happens, because we did it together. You understand? But if you want to become Bill Gates, and then you want to become Kevin Gates, you have to become Kevin Gates. I don't know how many guys know Kevin Gates. He's a rapper. Yes, yes. I know where you are on your journey. Exactly where you are. Yeah. So how do we do it together? Because together we can't fail, man. Ubuntu, guys, we can't. We cannot. It's impossible to fail together. So how do we bring more people along? How do we share the power? How do we share the knowledge? And then how do we make sure that was my concept with AT Labs initially. So I was like, even if just one company makes it, even if you're like, hey, Edwin, you made it, can you give me a job? I know now, I mean, even if I'm broke in 5 years, I can call Edwin and be like, boss, things are thick. Can I come and work for you? And Edwin will be like, yeah, I know, dude, you write some good Scala code, man. We're trying to build this new module. Or I want to do this, I want to do that. So it becomes a very shared ecosystem. Yeah, and I mentioned about keep the team flat. I swear, we're just human beings at the end of the day. And that's all we are, by the way, nothing else. Anything that we're doing that a tree is not doing, I think I've said this in AT. Anything we're doing a tree is not doing, we should not be doing. We're not being. We should just be. I swear to God, that's all we are. We're so simple. 0 and 1, that's it. So all these other structures, especially the ones that you can't see. You know the clothes you can see, you're like, yeah, we're wearing clothes. But there's all these other implicit, random structures that, like money, power, I don't know, all these other things that we've useless. So if in a company you can keep it human, keep it decent, with just human beings, you create value so fast. It's amazing. Music, yeah, this one I threw in there just to tell you guys. When I code, I listen to music. I used to listen to music with lyrics. Lyrics I understood, and that shit used to confuse me. I'm like, suddenly it's like you're coding, and then you're like, I believe okay, R. Kelly off. Don't listen to R. Kelly. Whatever, like it throws you off. So then I discovered house music, and I started with house music from, the White House music, the one that's like do. I was like, man, this is good. And then Calvin, who left, but he told me about South African house. And I was like, wow, okay. Then I went into Amapiano. I'm 40, by the way. But if those tunes come out, I know I can roll with the part. I can't do the dances though. I might break a knee. But the music really helps, man. I don't know, it's something that just, and you can code at any time, in any environment. It's the way it makes you feel. I think it almost like opens your mind somehow. You're like, wow, you're feeling it. You know when I said feel the code, you're feeling it because you're feeling the. So your whole mind is in a feeling. You're in a feeling mood. You wanna feel. Because that's what architecture is about. It's about feeling. You feel this thing is right. You feel it. And then South African house is a lot slower. It's a lot more, and it has drops, so it just builds up and then it drops you. God, dude, when that drop hits, you're like, oh, you remember exactly what line of code you are writing. It's so much fun. I mean, I'm just sharing my experience. I'm not saying maybe your thing is quite it's Kamba music, whatever it is. Whatever floats your boat. But seriously, actually, in my next life, I want to start a record label and make music. I think music is like, there's something about music that's just. Cargo, we talked about it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's make music. Because for me, music and code are the same thing. It's the same creativity that drives you to like Jay-Z type stuff to like, proper architecture. It's pleasurable actually. It's pleasurable. So for me, that's something that really helps. So Ilarian was built on our piano. There's a whole playlist that I have that is just good tunes. I don't know what they're saying, but I'm feeling what they're saying. I'm like, it's like you're talking to your ancestors, and they're telling you, dude, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. Calm down. Like you feel it. It's really, really cool. And then work on yourself. Mental health. This is the biggest epidemic after COVID. It's gonna be mental health. And it's how do you take care of your mind, and how do you take care of yourself? How do you let go of your ego? How do you become a human being? How do you rest? How do you deal with your pain? Human beings, it's like from the moment you're born, there's pain. They say childbirth is painful. You feel that pain too. That pain, you feel it. You're right there. Do you know childbirth is a child bearing down head first? I've been there for 2 births. I can tell you, it's scary. I'm like, if I'm this scared, how scared is this child? That is how we enter the world, right? Now imagine how much pain you carry. So take care of yourself. And I can tell you for a fact, if I didn't take care of myself, maybe AT would not be here. I had to, and COVID forced us to stop. COVID locked you in your house with your traumas and your drama, and was like, okay, slow down. Before you could leave the house and go somewhere. Government was like, no, maybe that was the best thing the government did, lock us up. When you're locked up, man, you realize you're building Ilarian to keep yourself safe. Not because you care about customer data. It's because you want to make more money. And then you're like, how much more money do you want to make anyway? How much money is enough money? We're in Kenya. How much money is enough money? There's actually a number where you can be like, you know what, beyond this, I don't care. I literally don't care. Why do I need to make billions? For what? And then spend the rest of my life asking Bill Gates how he gave his away? No. Dude, it doesn't make sense. So you start realizing why you do certain things and why, like who are you, what matters to you, who are you as a human being. I just want to be like that tree. I love the trees. If you see me hugging a tree now, I'm a tree hugger. Those trees, man, they've hacked life. They've hacked it. They have no expectations. They don't care how much money they have. Sometimes they give us fruits. Actually, it is a place you come to work and you live with fruits. Every time I come to work, you live with some guavas. They give you guavas, they give you avocados. Nice fruits. You're like, wow, you go home and you're like, dude, actually that tree gave me something just for going to work. I didn't have to ask it. It was just like, take it. Anyway, sorry. I know this could be a whole other conversation. But that's very important. Don't treat this as an escape. Please, this is not a clutch. Just do this because you love it. Don't do it because it makes money. do it because you love. The moment you get to the point of doing it because you love it, then you will actualize. You'll do it better than you ever can. So don't show up here. Like, don't do it the way I lived most of my life doing it because it was gonna alleviate my pain. I was number 3 in KCSE for crying out. How hard? You know, sometimes I see the kids who are ranked in KCSE, and I'm like, that kid who's number 1, I just want to give him a hug. Because I understand how difficult that is. To be number 1. You see how hard guys like Usain Bolt run. How hard they work to be the best. Imagine you're number 1 amongst a million kids. Dude, you are tired. You are tired. Especially in this old system where it's one line. Now everyone is in the same line. It's not, me actually want to be in the middle somewhere. Chilling in the middle, playing, having fun. Like, why do I have to work this hard? No, if you see a tree that's grown so tall, even you like, hey chief, calm down. Calm down, like you're eating up all the nutrients. Right? So, and I think that's where you really get to once you really, and I can't stress this slide for me, this is the most important slide. I cannot emphasize this more. This is absolutely, figure out where that's what's driving you. Is it shame? Is it pain? Is it abandonment? What fears do you have? Like, what is that thing that's getting you in there? And I know as programmers, actually programmers, we run to the computer, because it's just you in the computer, you're like, I don't have to deal, and you put the music. You tune out the world, and you live in your own little world. And you don't understand why you did that and why you became so good. And I can tell you why I became so good. It's my trauma. I can tell you that for a fact. So really, please just come to a good place and you'll realize that you're so gifted and you'll be doing this stuff like this. And share, and this is it. Sharing experiences. That's it. That's all I'm doing right now. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just sharing my experience. I hope that's how you guys are receiving it. I'm just sharing my experience. I'm on my journey. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna share as widely as I can. Because that's it. Do you know, actually I realized, Nigeria is a tough country to live in. But they're some of the most healed individuals. Do you know why? Because they talk all the time. I figured it out the other day. Nigerians, I swear, they will stop a car in Lagos. In the middle, they will get out and they will fight. Physically like this. I saw someone biting someone on the neck. And I was like, whoa. But that guy went home knowing that she was resolved. Today, I fought weak. It was bad, and he talk about it, and he will release it. I was in an Uber the other time, and I overheard the driver talking to the owner of the car, and it was such a heated conversation, so heated. When it finished, I asked him, dude, what was that all about? It's like, that guy, his dad is in Kenyatta National Hospital. He's always asking me for money, blah blah blah. And part of me was like. And he said something really incredible. He said, I am telling you this so I can release it. Oh. Once you talk about it, you release it. You really let it go. Now I know Kenyans. As Kenyans, we talk on Twitter. Like, we don't share experiences. Some shit happens. Eddie was the one who's like, dude, what the hell, man? Why are you torturing us with all this knowledge? Right? In Nigeria, those guys will have told me, yeah, I'm going. Man, this is crazy. Like, you come with too much knowledge. This is too much. I don't want. But instead now you go home, you're like, man, that's some dude, man. He thinks that he paid us to sit here and listen to him the whole day. No, but that's what I'm saying. So let's share experiences. Let's do these kinds of things and that, for me, these two, like, really, seriously. And we have a network in AT for these kinds of things. So that's a big pillar for AT, mental health. We want to make sure that that's something, and for us, it's not enough to do it just for AT, but we want to do it for anyone that is willing, that is like, hey, we need help. It's very important, because that's my journey. It's a mental health journey. If I didn't get on my journey, I wouldn't be here right now. And that's a heavy statement if you think about it. Just that statement. Yeah. Great. I think those are the lessons. Maybe we can stop there and see if there are any questions, or what do you guys feel? Because I have maybe, how many, 4 or 5 more slides. I will confess, the last part of the presentation I didn't really think through too much. I was trying to prepare this last night. I didn't think I was going to use slides, but I was like, hey, maybe let me just put some thoughts together. I can quickly go over this and maybe just go to the next slide. So after all these lessons, I can now talk about why I use the tool that I use and why that works for me, right? It may not work for you. Those lessons may not make sense for you, but for me, from my experience, I use Scala because Scala is strongly typed. It's very expressive, strongly typed. Scala, man, an int is not gonna change. It's gonna be an int all the way. A function that returns an int is not gonna change. You can even express the type of a function. You can express types very, very strongly. And that allows you to compose things very, very safely. Allows you to test, allows you to express yourself. So it gives you a very nice environment for you to express yourself. Works with the JVM ecosystem. So the JVM ecosystem is incredibly, this is a, I don't know how many, maybe 30-year-old ecosystem. So anything you want to do, there's probably something in the ecosystem. Well, I guess JavaScript now has the most libraries, but the JVM is equally powerful in that sense. So if you want something that, and Marshall's XML, it's there. Marshall's XML reads some random HTTP stuff, talks to MySQL, boom, boom, boom. And then now with Scala, there is a huge move to make those things highly concurrent. Because traditional libraries in the JVM used to block. Because the way you did concurrency in the JVM was by blocking. Now with Scala, you can wrap that around and use actors to make sure you're not blocking. The illusion of blocking is, of course, at the end of the day, you'll block because the computer can only do one instruction at a time. I think we should all remember that. It's an illusion, but it helps you build correctly. Helps you reason around, did I lock this resource? You don't need to remember, did I lock this resource? You just use it because you know no one else is going to be using it at that time. Powerful compiler, and you can write Java faster. So I think the Java guys really catch feelings here. So we can do what you're doing, but faster. Wow, that is so annoying. Or is it? I think it's a good thing. I think we should invite the Java guys. You can mix object-oriented and functional concepts for full expressiveness. So you can pick which functional concepts you want to use, which object-oriented concepts you want to use. You can, if I went into Scala right now, it would be a whole other conversation. So I will leave this here with you guys. And then the Akka framework. So the Akka framework is actually fantastic because it actually comes in both Java and Scala. So if you're a Java developer, you can actually use Akka. If you're a Scala developer, you can use Akka. Now, the primary language for them is Scala. I'll leave that there. Just to say that, but then and we can move on to the next slide. And here I can talk about actors. So actors have been implemented in many languages. So there is Erlang, there is actors. Even in JavaScript, you'll find actors. You'll find them in C#. You'll find them in all these different languages. And it's kind of another way of thinking about concurrency, where if we both walk into the room at the same time and we want to do 4 things, if I'm doing thing 1, you don't have to block the other person from doing thing 1. You just send a message saying, I want to do thing 1. When thing 1 gets done, the other person, thing 1 is done. So you're not, there's an illusion of everything is happening at once. Although at the end of the day, there is locking. At the base level, there is locking because there's only a finite amount of threads that are processing your requests. But the way you write your code is through message passing. So my message will be send SMS. The other person's message will be send SMS. You receive the send SMS message. When you're done, you say message was done, right? So when you're processing the SMS, I can now process the next message that's coming in. So it's very good for high throughput. And then there is actually, if you look at how modern multi-core platforms look like, when a Scala application is running, an actor-based application is running, utilization is really high. It's very high because you bring up this thread pool and they are all working. They are always working. All of them are working together. To achieve that using locking, you have to be some kind of genius. It's very, very tough to be, okay, so who are you working on? Are you working on the same thing I'm working on? So it's a very different model, and I think we can now go into examples just to really clarify how that works. And you can easily encapsulate state and behavior. Of course, this from the OO side, this is quite clear. So actors comprise both state and behavior. So an actor will have some state. You need to be careful with actor state, right? And these are things we can get into. So what kind of state can you store in an actor? Because remember, an actor only has the state for as long as it's processing the request. Otherwise, the state could disappear, right? So there's all these things that we can get into around how actors actually work. You can express patterns such as microservices. I talked about that. Finite state machines, which I'm in love with, where you can reduce the scope of the problem you're solving so that you can solve it more correctly, you can test more aggressively. It just allows you to write simpler code. The complexity has to go somewhere, by the way. The Akka framework itself is very complex. It's not something you can just walk into and really start contributing towards. There's a lot of complexity under the hood, but then it allows you to now express business logic in a very simple way. Locational transparency. So this is where an actor, the way you talk to an actor is you get a reference to the actor. So I get a reference to actor Graham. I don't need to know where actor Graham lives. Actor Graham could be in the same JVM, could be in a JVM in Nairobi, could be in a JVM in the US, could be anywhere. Actor Graham may already have been killed and needs to be recreated somewhere else. And that reference will take care of that, of recreating Graham. So all I do is I assume I have a reference to Graham and I just work with Graham. That means scaling horizontally is not something you're not doing in the code. It's something that's done for you by the framework, and it happens at the infrastructure level. Incredibly powerful stuff. Oh my God, this stuff is incredibly powerful. And you will start to see examples and really build small snippets that show you how this works. I talked about locking. So message passing means you can avoid locks. So you're always just passing messages. The lock actually is when your inbox, so you have an inbox. So the lock is when your inbox is full. So then you can really say, I can't take any more messages. But then that means maybe you're calling a wait. Oh, dude, that's what happened. That was an inside joke, I just realized. And then you can test components in isolation and then compose them to model complex behavior. So you can have a component that just does authentication, just does billing, just does persistence, just does validation, but then once you put them together, you're making millions. So, and you can test all of them in isolation. But they're all part of the same program that's running, but you're testing them in isolation. So you have hooks, very, very complex hooks into testing this behavior. You can test behavior all the way from, with these inputs, what are the outputs, to just the internals of the actor itself. What does the actor look like if I send it this message? So it's a very, very powerful construct. Yes.
So, in a sentence, if possible, what's the difference between object-oriented and actor-oriented?
So actor-oriented is it's a concurrency model, I would say. So it's a way for you to build highly concurrent applications. It borrows from object-oriented concepts. So an actor itself is actually an object, right?
So concurrent object-oriented is actor-oriented.
So there's many ways of doing concurrency, right? So you can do concurrency using locks. Actually, I said many, actually no two. You can do it using locks, because I haven't been paying attention. Or you can now do it using message passing, right? So when you do message passing, the actor is the one that receives, processes the message, and then sends back the response. And does that asynchronously. So when you send the actor a message, you don't have to wait for the actor to process that message before you move on to the next message in your queue. I think the best thing, we should get an animator to grow this stuff, and you see what happens. Me, I get my messages, send you, I had 9, now I had 10 messages, now I have 9. You had 0, now you have 1, right? As you're processing that one, I am processing my next one. You understand? So I don't have to wait for you to do what you're doing to do the next thing that I'm doing. So there's that illusion of concurrency. And it's not really an illusion. You actually are experiencing concurrency. One still is not done, and one could be processed by 5 other different actors before it's actually done. And when that's done, the underlying actor model will make sure that you get the results eventually. Yes?
A follow-up to see if I understood. So in OP, normally when one object wants to interact with another object, you need a reference to that object and to call a method on that object. And that reference has to be in the same memory space. If it's not, then you get a new reference.
Yes, yeah.
But in this case, what you're saying is like, if I want to communicate with a particular actor, I express my intent to do a message, I send a message, and then the actor framework figures out where this particular actor lives, whether it's on this JVM or a different JVM, he sends that message, that is like processed, so that it's like I'm decoupled from whatever the actor
Yes,
is.
exactly, yes, exactly. So the actor model is actually, so they're actually two very different concepts. So the whole concept of actors, so you can't compare actors to objects, you can compare them to locks in terms of concurrency model. So it's a concurrent programming model that uses special objects that are called actors. And the actors are now managed by a framework that now hides things like, where is this actor that you're talking to? Or ensures that if you send a request and you're expecting a response, the response will be delivered back to the sender, right?
It's an assured non-blocking.
So you can block within an actor, but then you have to block yourself. So you could say, for example, I could send you a message and wait for you to respond. So if I had 9 messages and I sent you the next message, I could also wait for you to respond, right? In that case, I will call await. I will wait for your response. But then what that means is I have now blocked all the other 7 messages that are pending in my queue, right? Generally not a good idea. Sometimes you may want to do it, especially if you're spinning up the application and you want to make sure you've loaded all the MySQL elements into memory. So then you want to await before you start processing requests. But it's something that you as a programmer will need to enforce. So it's by default there is no locking. Yeah. And I think so Node.js has very similar constructs actually. I think if you've done some Node.js with promises and those kinds of constructs, it's actually very similar to how the actor model works. And awaits. Although in Node.js, await doesn't mean you wait, it just communicates that this is going to be done asynchronously. Yeah. So it's basically the same. Actually, part of me feels like Node.js developers will really pick up actor programming very, very fast, which is exciting because I think the more the merrier. So for Hilarion, this is a basic, I think we've talked about Hilarion a lot. Hilarion is something that we built with the intention of giving the customer control over their data. So we want the customer to own their data, not the business. So we're taking the ownership of the customer's data away from the business and giving it to the customer. So for example, we want it so that if you go to Kenyatta National Hospital and they collect some data on you, when you leave that hospital, you live with your data. You can live with your data. If they want your data, they have to buy it from you, right? So that is what we're trying to build. Is there a way in which we can give you control over your data? Now, I know the blockchain enthusiasts will be like, dude, hold my beer, right? But is there a way to do it without blockchain? Is there a way, are there applications? And by the way, we're not saying all applications will actually respect this. But there are certain applications that, by definition, want to respect this. Healthcare is a big field where applications want to respect your data because the data they have on you is so sensitive, right? So you actually want to know who knows that I have diabetes. I don't have diabetes, as far as I know. But if I wanted to tell everyone I have diabetes, I could tell everyone, right? Or I could be like, hey, that's me. If the US Embassy wants to know before they give me a visa, then yeah, then I need to know that they're actually asking for my diabetes information, right? And this is where the world is going. If you look at all the data laws that are being implemented. Now what's happening with the data laws? This is the opportunity. With the data laws, they're saying, so today databases look like this. This is the user table, right? We're all in here. Over there's another table. We're all in there. Over there, by the time you're building a company that's doing anything meaningful, you have 10 different tables or databases where a user data is scattered all over your infrastructure. The day I say, please forget me, even the developer is the first one to be like, hey boss, do you understand that I already leaked this into a data lake? Do you understand that I don't know who this person is because they have an Airtel line and a Safaricom line? I don't even know who this person is. So imagine now building applications in 2, 3, 4 years where a few companies have already been fined 5 million shillings because one customer was like, where did you get this number? It will be impossible with the current databases. How are you going to do that? It's actually, I don't know why no one is, it's actually not possible. So what we are saying with Ilarion is, look, we identify the user. It's very important that we identify the user. Even if it means we go into the government databases, whatever data we use to identify you. And that is the only machine learning we're going to do. And then once we identify you, we protect, we give you your own MySQL, we give you your own Redis, we give you your own, so you have a mini database. That's in memory, right? So at any one time, your digital equivalent exists and your data is part of that digital equivalent. And then now you can now have fine-grained control over who has access to your data. And as a consumer, you can log into an app and say, okay, so this is the data that I have, these are the apps that I have. It's basically the App Store or the Play Store, but then now for any application. So let's say tomorrow we build Africa Stocking on Ilarion, right? When you're logging into Africa Stocking, all your data, all your personally identifiable data will be stored in Ilarion, and you can see what that data is. So if AT is being sketchy and collecting data from your GitHub, you can see that. Well, I don't know if that's being sketchy, because you can also tell us, hey, look at my GitHub. Look at the data that I have there. So you can actually permission what data is stored for you, right? Of course, that is our bet. I think that's a big driver for Web3 in terms of, just giving you control over your own data. But Web3 is plagued by scalability issues, because if you really want to scale Web3, I think we're a few years away from that, or maybe many years away from that, where this can actually work at scale. So the whole concept is, can we give you that database where every time there's an interaction, there is clarity on who you are, there is clarity on who is using your data, who is collecting your location data, who is collecting your health data, who's collecting your biometrics data, your biographical, where you live. So if you want to be forgotten, it's one API request. I think someone was implementing that API request. Our friend there. Imagine how powerful that is. Delete me and you're gone. Of course, maybe government would be like, hey guys, I don't know, I looked at the camera. Maybe government might be like, hey, we still want to know who did this stuff. But then you also need to know government knows this stuff. So then maybe you behave yourself. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, can we just think of that world where databases are not a collection of everyone in one place? How do you put everyone in one table and then say you're going to protect one person? By definition, it doesn't work. So can we build that? Can we get rid of the data lakes? Because think about your experience when you go into a kiosk. When you go to a kiosk, the shopkeeper knows you. Because he has all your information, you're right there. And if he doesn't have information, he can ask you, do you want salt half kg or do you want 1 kg today? He doesn't have to start guessing, this is a white female, because they bought. No. That is how data works today. As far as today's programs are concerned, they are approximating who we are. They probably think I'm a black female. Maybe I bought sanitary pads for my friend. Ooh, oh man, this is a black female. Okay. What do we do with a black female? You advertise. What do we tell her? Do you want your hair done? And then it's, oh my God, look, I do need my hair done. Yeah, this is good. This is good. Oh, do you want blah blah blah? And then at some point you're like, hey, chief, can't you see? Why don't you just ask me, are you a black female? And I will tell you, no. And with identity data, we can verify. If I say yes, it might be the identity will be like doubtful. But this is a black female. That's it. And imagine the powerful applications that we can now build in that new world. And how you can protect people, and because customers will start demanding those applications. They'll be like, dude, if it doesn't have that stamp, I don't like it. I don't like it. You know how you go, I don't know if you've traveled to like Europe, anyone, and you've seen how people are dancing around GDPR. It's the most silly, stupid, like it's just a JavaScript pop-up. Allow all cookies, allow some cookies. I'm like, and then when you say allow some, it takes you to down another road. And there's like billions. And they're not telling you what they're collecting on you. They're not telling you this is what we have on you. This is exactly what we have on you. Are you comfortable with us having this information on you? They just want the day they are sued, they're like, but this guy said allow all cookies. And what is a cookie anyway? I wanna eat that shit. like, we're moving to a cookieless world. It doesn't make, cookies means they're selling your information to all these people. Those cookies are not supplied by those companies, supplied by the companies that we are going to disrupt. Guys, this is how we disrupt these companies. Transparently. And we do it together. So my plan is, we started with our V1. I think we ran all over the place. We were too ambitious. We want to scale it back a bit, and then we want to build it with this community in a very open source fashion, and we see how do we create opportunities for everyone that's contributing. How can everyone here be an owner? How can everyone here share in the outcomes? How can we help the African girl child? I see there's very few African girls here. How can we make tech female as well? How can we really drive that movement? So that's our vision for this. We've already taken the first few steps. There's more than 100,000 lines of code to dig through, but it's very patternistic. So hopefully, if you understand some of these basic concepts, you should be able to get in there and be like, so this is how you're doing authentication. Of course, it has crazy things like RSocket, which we haven't even started talking about. But I think it's a wonderful product. I think a lot of you have interacted with it. But we want to do it together. And for me, it's also how do we build a very strong open source culture in Africa? Because in 10 years, most engineers will be African. How do we grow with open source? How do we make software abundant? So code is no longer the currency. It's your own creativity. It's what you can do with NFTs. It's what you can do with this. Can you quickly put things together? Can we make code abundant? I know it's scary because it's like, then what jobs are we gonna have? But then the word is there will be abundance. And once there's abundance of everything. It's a culture that it's changing your mind. How many have watched How to Change Your Mind on Netflix? Yes. You should all go and watch that show. Because by the way, once you change your mind, you change your world. You just think differently. And if you can really change your mind about this, the world can be abundant. So I think that's what I was saying. And open source for me, that's something I really want to. Even the biggest companies, the biggest contributors of open source are the biggest tech companies today. So if you want to build a big tech company, by definition, you're going to have to do open source. So why not start a company that starts with open source? Imagine if Safaricom open sourced the Safaricom, are you listening? Imagine if they open sourced M-Pesa and said, by the way, it's open source, you guys can make it better. You know those issues, Hakikisha, I don't know if Hakikisha, what? I'm like, some of these things don't make sense. Safaricom should just open source it and then tell us, guys, innovate on it. And then you'll find guys in Zambia, oh my God, they've plugged in and M-Pesa now works in Zambia. You'll find guys in the US are contributing. Guys in Russia will contribute to this. Guys in Ukraine will contribute to this. Guys in India will suddenly we'll forget about Bitcoin. Well, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I'm just saying. We already have the Bitcoin that runs on SMS. Why is in the world talking about M-Pesa? Because it's closed. If it was open, you change life like this. It's not rocket science. We know it's not rocket science. So, that's the kind of thinking that really, and it comes from a place of willing to be vulnerable and willing to be like, hey, we know we're going to end up in a good place. Yes?
So I'm seeing that organizations will be having their own deployment of Millennium. Does that mean that I'm going to exist for Instagram and I exist again for...
Good question. So organizations can define their own identity construct. So for example, an organization can decide my identity is based on your email address. I don't care about who you are. As long as I have your email address, that's enough for me, right? The public cloud deployment of Ilarion will base identity on publicly available data where we can identify you. And those apps will use that as the definition of identity. Actually, this will be, Cargo is the one who will drive this. I don't know why I'm talking about identity when the expert on identity is right here. That's it. Because once you say, I care about who this person is, right? Then you can protect their data. But since it's open source, it's like MySQL. Someone can download MySQL and use it. So we can't stop organizations from running it on their own, right? I think that's all I'm trying to communicate with this. And then now you as the user can decide, do I want to use that product where I know my data is not going to be protected? Yes?
I'm just wondering how it's working. Assuming I have a company and I collect some information about someone. So is it that my customer will, the data about the customer will be on Ilarion?
Yes.
And then I will require the customer to probably invoke something for the registration or something. How?
So the idea is the data will be on Ilarion, right? And when you now want to interact with the customer, when the customer comes to interact with your business logic, the customer can then permission your application to access that data, right? Kind of the way, I don't know how Google Play Store, sorry, I do have an iPhone. Again, the shame. No, but it's true. The way Apple protects your data is why you buy that freaking phone. Those guys, man, when you download Safaricom M-Pesa, the first thing they ask you is, do you want to allow this app to track your data across and sell it to other applications? Who in their right mind will ever say yes to that? If they say it for 1,000 shillings a month, I would be like, maybe I do, right? But this is like, no, hell to the no, I don't want that shit. Like, you don't want it. Or when you're using Uber and it's, suddenly it's using your location, it's like, do you want your location to be shared while using the app? Never or always? Who says always? Why would Uber want to know where I am when I'm not using the app? That is how fine-grained Apple protects people's data. But then, now, whose data do they protect? The guys who can pay a shit ton of money for that phone. You, as someone who is using all these other applications, where is your protection? How come you're not protected? And then Apple, in any case, is Apple actually protecting your data? Or are they saying, we are the only ones that can see what's happening? Oh, look at how M-Pesa Mini Apps develops, by the way. It's the same. They're building the same thing. Only they can know who you are. But they're not knowing who you are to protect you. They're knowing who you are so they can monetize who you are, right? So Ilarion is saying, we're just taking it a step further of saying, We want to know who you are, but so that we can protect your data, right? That's our promise. If you tell us who you are, we'll protect your data. So that's the whole idea, and these things exist in the Apple ecosystem. I don't know if you guys have built mini apps. You see the direction they're heading. Google ecosystem is the same. In fact, Google sometimes tell you can download your data that we have on you, and no one knows. I don't know what the link is. There's a link you can go to and download the data they have on you, and then they send you some cryptic PDFs, and they're like, no one will do this twice. Because their whole business model is built on that. I'm telling you how these companies are disrupted is trust. They've betrayed people's trust. And after COVID, the biggest currency is trust. Even governments betrayed our trust during COVID. Even governments. So imagine how, that's why Bitcoin was worth $3 trillion at some point. Because Bitcoin said, look, we are trustless. Of course, you need to trust the developers and all that. Ultimately, there has to be trust somewhere, right? And and when you look at Bitcoin, well, I don't want to go there, but there's a whole other conversation to be had on Bitcoin. But it's built on trust. Blockchain is built on trust. So trust is the new currency. And the most valuable thing in the world is information. So if you can enhance trust around how you handle people's information, therefore you have something very valuable, right? Can we build this together, guys? Maybe we can. Maybe we can't. I know I can't do it myself. I tried. It's a big problem, but I think we're headed in that direction with Ilarion. I genuinely feel like we're headed in that direction. And if we just bring in a few experts to really help us, how do you define identity? Eddie over there can help us. How do you encrypt data? How do you share data so you can't de-anonymize it? How do you do these things? You build that into Ilarion in an open source fashion. I'll send my data there. I'll be like, sure, keep it there. Because you can see, and it's open, and you can see this. And these guys are not doing it to make money from your data. They just want to protect your data. So I think that's the concept. And then now the value is in what kinds of applications can you now build that users can access. It doesn't matter if you're accessing Uber from a website, an iPhone application, an Android application, your data is safe. You understand where I'm going with this? It's interesting, right? Maybe just to me. I think it's interesting. It's interesting. And by the way, one thing I've learned about companies, when we started AT, we were the only guys that were building for African developers. That story has never been told. We were the only guys who were like, by the way, you should build for the African software developer, right? And for many years, we tried to convince people, guys, open up your APIs, build for African developers. If AT died today, I would die a happy man. Because do you know what today? There are so many people building for the African developer, right? Does it matter that I am not the one who's doing all that? It doesn't matter to me one bit. All that matters is the change I wanted in the world actually happened. So even with this idea, if someone else out-executes us and does it, am I gonna go to sleep like shaking? No, I'll be like, wow, we expressed an idea and someone actually did it. And I didn't have to buy Ethereum or to use it. Sorry, I know I'm shitting on all these cryptocurrencies. I love cryptocurrencies. But how can you call it a currency when today it's worth 10 and then tomorrow it's worth 20? Or 5? You pick your poison, So anyway, can these ideas actually be implemented? And whoever implements it, can our lives change? Can we in 10 years say, by the way, those kinds of apps actually exist and they're secure and they're being used? Maybe it's not Ilarion, maybe it's Microsoft who built it. Maybe it's Google, maybe it's Apple. Apple have already built it. Maybe they just need to release the open source version of the App Store. And we plug into it. I'll plug into it tomorrow. I will drop everything up and just plug in. That's it. So when you start thinking about that, you really liberate yourself from the scarcity mentality of why should I share my experience or my ideas with anyone? And then you start building what matters to you. What change do you want to see in your world? Because I'm a developer. Of course, I wanted people to build for developers. That's the change I wanted to see in my world. So I think that's the mentality, that's the kind of mentality that I really hope we can adopt in the African ecosystem. Because guys, our ecosystem is so young, we can shape it however we want. It can look very different from those other ecosystems. We can do away with venture capital. Okay, that's a whole other topic. I think that's it, actually. That's all I had prepared. I will acknowledge that this was a lot. That's my experience. This is my experience, and I think we can open it up to any questions, concerns, observations. Actually, I think there is what's next for us. So what's next for me, and it's very clear from this conversation, is just how do we share this knowledge in a structured way, where it's not overwhelming, where you can pick it up at your own pace, you can always access it. So we are going to start the Illyrian Academy. Actually, the name is not nailed in stone. It might still be Africa's Talking Academy. We're even thinking of starting a software foundation where different people can contribute software. We're happy to contribute, of course, contribute Illyrian, contribute other libraries that we use in AT. As open source libraries, of course, in-person boot camps if you're interested. So we can, we have a massive space here that we can always use. So if you want to come work from here, do boot camps. Yeah, and then hopefully we start to build together a group of core contributors for Illyrian. I think that's a big outcome for us. So the people that will really drive that movement. I want it to be a movement towards protecting customer data by developers, for developers. I think it's very important because we are the ones, when that fine is going to be adjudged, do you know who's going to go to jail? It's one of us. Yeah, this developer is the one who did not, because we're the custodians of that data. So it's very important that our voice is heard. I don't know why the Data Protection Office does not have software developers. And it's sad. And then they say, oh, we're going to hide the phone numbers when we send you an M-Pesa transaction. How? What? Don't you understand? The phone number is the key in my database. So if you don't send me the phone number, who paid for gas? I don't know. Give me time to move that from primary to secondary and then tell me what the primary key should be, because you told me the phone number is the primary key. You see how these conversations just break down and then the country is in chaos. Oh, we're going to have a register of all this one I've argued with MK, a register of all the software developers. What? Which software developer was in the room when this was agreed? And what's in it for us? Why? Why should I tell you that I'm a software developer? What are you going to do for me? So all these things are being done because, by the way, we're still treated as like the implementers. But I told you, dude, we know the house. We know the house. We know what the house looks like. When software is eating up the world, we are eating up the world. And sometimes we just need to be like, actually, yeah, we do know the house. If we had the M-Pesa code here, we could look at it and be like, so that's why the bill. I think there's a time made some simple, silly things that you're like, it can be done. We just show us the house. And the good thing with developers is we usually come with very good intentions. When I say we have 100,000 developers on the platform, and we've not been hacked, it's also the intentions of those developers. Very good intentions. But then we're treated like an afterthought. Let us control these guys. Let them register. Let us hide the phone numbers. Dude, like, just, how will I reconcile? Anyway, okay. Yeah.
When we talk of Africa's talking, and I hear voice, I guess
name in whatever we are doing, what is in Ethereum?
So Africa's Talking is a company that will help you connect to any telco in Africa and send and receive SMSs, make phone calls, send airtime, and build USSD applications. Africa's Talking is playing squarely in the 2G spectrum because 2G is here to stay. We could do 10G, 15G, but 2G is here. It's already here. So it will always be a relevant channel for you as a business. Even if you want to move your customer up the stack, so they're using data. Even that will depend on how did you come correct on the 2G spectrum. Because if they call your call center and they can't find you, if they ask for an OTP and it did not arrive, you're losing trust with that customer. So ultimately, we want to focus on the 2G problem. It's a big problem across Africa. In Kenya, we've done a good job. We've not done a good job in many other countries. A lot of that, not out of our own doing, but just out of the telco's own neglect of that spectrum. Where you see in Kenya, 99% of messages are delivered. You jump to Uganda, 70, 80%. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So Africa's Talking is focusing on that problem. And the day there is no business that wants to use the 2G spectrum, then Africa will not stop talking. But that's what we're focusing on as a company. Now, as part of Africa's Talking, we had an entity called AT Labs, right? So AT Labs was our innovation wing. We started AT Labs so I could continue writing code. That's when I stepped down from CEO of Africa's Talking. I was like, this CEO of Africa's Talking position means I have to go and talk to investors, and I was like, no, I don't like that. So I was like, I'll be CEO of AT Labs, and I will write code, and no one will ask me questions. Because AT Labs is meant to write code, right? So in AT Labs, we built a lot of products. One of those products is Ilarian, right? And we built Ilarian initially as the next iteration for Africa's Talking. But then we stumbled on the data privacy opportunity, if you will, or problem, where we actually discovered that by storing customer data inside persistent actors, you can protect it. You can control where that data is actually going to be accessed, right? So Ilarian is completely separate entity that is now going to be open sourced, right?
Is there anything in the name Ethereum?
So, the question, okay. No, so Ilarian, in a moment of inspiration, I remember I looked for I wish I kept I had a long list of names. I looked for names. I think eventually I was like, Ilara. I searched for Ilara. There were so many Ilaras. Then I was just like, I was like, and I wanted something that has a .com. So I was like, Ilarian. And it sounds, I think it's a cool name. Why are you guys laughing? I think it's cool. And Ilarian means good in all languages. So when you think of Ilarian, think about good. It's just good. That's it. So it's like Google. You know, Google. One day Ilarian will be in all the dictionaries. That's my vision. One day, instead of good, if you say Ilarian, everyone in the world will be like, good. And it will be an African name that means good. Imagine if Africa is associated with good. It's powerful. It's spiritual, actually. I could have a whole slide on spirituality. We can go down that road, and then we can invite Wajakoya to. Yes.
I have three questions. So I was particularly interested on the part where you say you changed from MySQL to Cassandra. One of the things that I've struggled to or grappling to understand when it comes to making such a decision
is, since you're part of the backend and building it, what was the number that made you reach to a decision we need to change to Cassandra? So that's the first question. And the second question is in terms of, so you can have the systems in your company where you enforce how the code is written. If it's code review, it has to reach this particular standard. But now there usually comes to a time where a problem comes from the customer side. So support says one of our customers is facing a problem, and it's one of your, let's say, one of the biggest customers, and it's very critical. So it's more wanted to find out how do you still have that particular culture of instilling the correct standards, and you have to ship code very fast. You have to write the test, but this particular problem does not have a test. So you can speak about that one. And the last question.
Okay, I think those questions are heavy, so let me answer them one after
the last one is not heavy.
No, let me answer those two, then you can ask the last one. So the MySQL Cassandra. So MySQL just ran into physical limitations of how much can you put in one server, because by construction you cannot scale MySQL horizontally. There's maybe enterprise versions of MySQL that you can scale horizontally, and scaling horizontally means my data can be stored in this server, and your data will be stored in that server, right? So that allows you to scale horizontally. Right? So you can, for example, and it's a concept called sharding, where you decide Sam's data will be in this server and your data will be in that server. So with MySQL, there is no natural construct that allows that to happen, right? With Cassandra, by definition, that is allowed to happen, right? Which means if you want to scale, if you want a server to store 1 terabyte worth of data in MySQL, you have to have a server that can accommodate 1 terabyte of data. And that's possible because you can just keep adding disk. But then the more you add disk, the more demands you have, because remember there is now more demands for that data. So even things like network bandwidth, the number of ports that are open, the memory of that server. So to scale to 1 terabyte of data, you probably need, maybe you need 128 GB of RAM, you know? So you really have a massive machine. And you can, and by the way, most people will do that. If you have deep pockets, that's what you do. Now me, I came from Morgan Stanley where there was a 4 GB rule. We had no server that was bigger than 4 GB. Today we do have servers bigger than 4 GB in IT. And that's also one of the downsides of the JVM. The JVM eats up memory like crazy, right? C++ does not eat up memory. So we had a 4 GB rule. So for me it was a very, okay, if I need more than 4 GB of RAM, then I should start thinking about scaling horizontally. And 4 GB, the number for you could be 1 terabyte. It could be a petabyte. But ultimately you will hit that physical constraint on that server. So with MySQL, I remember we had about 300 million rows before we decided to move, right? And then we made a mistake when we moved. To this day, we actually have, we made a very, very awkward mistake. Because now we decided, what I told you is what we did. And it was stupid. But, well, I don't want to call it stupid. It was ill-informed because now we sharded by the user ID. So now what happens is we have massive customers, but all their data is still in the same server, right? So what we need to do, or what we're doing now, is we're saying we're going to store all your data for a particular time period in this server, right? So we are now going down to like the data for customer X for January is going to be in this server, but for February will be in another server. So that doesn't grow unboundedly, because the last thing you want with storage is something that grows unboundedly. That is just a no-no. And there are certain things that will not grow unboundedly. So things like SMS messages sent could grow unboundedly. Things like shortcodes raised, you can keep that in MySQL happily. there's only a certain number of shortcodes that will be raised, or M-Pesa pay bills, right? There's also data that should have, and almost every data you store, you should try and give it a time to live. I think that's another issue. I don't know if MySQL has time to live today. Time to live is where you say, when I put this record in the database, in 1 year, get rid of it. So it's like a self-healing database. So it never grows unboundedly, right? So those are some of the things that we can now do with Cassandra. And by the way, then what happened? Some guys called Scala DB. Oof, they looked at Cassandra, they were like, hold my beer. Cassandra is written in the JVM, Scala DB is written in C++. I mean, they have wild claims about performance that I can't qualify. Wild claims about performance, which means with $10,000 a year, you can have 25,000 operations per second. Do you understand that math? Now, M-Pesa boasts about how many operations per second, I don't know. But I'm saying, public cloud on AWS, you can get 25,000 operations per second on this database. With just 3 nodes, massive amounts of RAM, you can do that. So that's what I'm saying. So these DBs actually are much more, and then what you sacrifice is, there is the cap theorem obviously, you sacrifice a bit of consistency. So there is eventual consistency. It's not immediate. Which means in the payments use case, you might be playing with fire a little bit. Just a little bit. You need to understand how much fire you're playing with. Because if your infrastructure team is awake, you're not playing with fire. If your infrastructure team is asleep, you're always playing with fire. It doesn't matter whether you're using MySQL or you're using whatever you're using. You're always playing with fire, right? So if you're awake, if you can actually manage these databases, they're incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful in ways that MySQL, you realize the locking in MySQL could actually be a bug that is forcing you to think in a certain way. Because all our payments use cases are actually lock-free. Lock-free payments, imagine. Isn't that interesting? And we have a business that processes, well, we haven't reached millions of transactions, but we've tried. We tried to sell this product, but it hasn't moved. But if it moved, we can actually handle in a lock-free manner because of how you combine these databases. So for me, databases is actually a whole topic on its own on how do you use. And I think there is the Cassandra class, there is the MySQL class, and then there is the Redis class. Redis is another database that is amazing. Amazing. If your infrastructure team is awake on Redis, fast operations, atomic operations. So 1,000 threads are updating this same int, and at the end of it, the result is 1,000. It's not 940, and it happens instantaneously because it's in memory. And that's what, Ilarion is also in memory, by the way. Ilarion is an in-memory database. So you're playing on the fact that, look, you're really not hitting the disk. Of course, now with Redis, you sacrifice, you play with a bit of fire if your infrastructure team is asleep. Because if that thing dies before it flashes to disk, then you've lost some records. But hey, if your infrastructure team is asleep, you're always playing with fire. Right? So that's the kind of thinking that we applied to really move in that direction. The second question was? The team. Yeah, dude, then that team, man, you just tell them, guys, go home. I mean, like, seriously, if you give, the thing is, you need to give the team ownership over the product. Once the team, in AT is actually, AT operates as, we call them squads. I think Safaricom is also doing that now. So we've had this squad since 2019 maybe, where you have teams. So if you talk about a product like SMS, there's a team that is fully responsible for SMS. I'm not their CEO. Well, on paper, I am. But they decide what happens with that product. Now that team will realize, oh my God, this is cool. And if they genuinely want to do the work, they will do the work. The only thing that you need from that team is transparency. Now, if you see this team is having outages, and they are not responding to the outages, and by the way, all these things ultimately filter out to the numbers. If the numbers are flagging, then there's a clear issue. then you can intervene and be like, hey guys, what's going on? Do you need more resources? Should we train you on how to handle these outages, right? So it's just trusting the team. Once you trust, if I was the one responsible for something like M-Pesa, of course I would make sure it works. It's like, you don't need to calm down every day and call me into meetings and, hold my ass. No, I will do it. I will make sure it works. Because I am a responsible human being and you've given me the space to grow. So that's the thesis that we have in the team. And it actually works. Graham, doesn't it work? It works. I mean, we're not a massive company. I think we're about maybe 70 people. But we have people that are doing things. In Rwanda, we haven't even seen. People we've never met. In Malawi, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Nigeria, in Ghana. People doing things. We've never met them. Human beings are incredible. Right? Just give them the space. So, you could also, now you could say Scrum, and then the CEO is coming for the next Scrum, so everyone is wearing a suit, because they know it's going to be a caning session. No, dude. I mean, who has the time? I don't have the time. I want to write code. Yeah, so I think that's now a culture question, and how you get there is a long journey, by the way. It's a long journey, but if you do it from the ground up, it's not a journey anymore, it's just who you are.
The last question was, is Ilarion an identity access management, or is it somewhat different?
So identity access management is one of the components of Ilarion, because it's important that you identify yourself. Because I could say I'm protecting your data, but if I don't know who you are, someone else can come and take all your data. That is an incredible hack on Ilarion. If you can pretend to be someone else, then you find one place where all the data is there. Do you know how incredibly valuable that is? So we need to be in the identity space as well, to make sure that you are who you say you are. And we need to find the top experts in the world on identity, including Mr. Eddie Kago over there. That man has written so many papers on identity. He's an expert. He has PhDs on this stuff. Because once you identify the customer, you can protect the customer. So that's a big part of it. Is that the core value proposition? No, the core value proposition is we will protect your data.
Yeah, hi. There's something I've always been curious about. You talked about how at one point you stepped down from CEO of AT to lead AT Labs. But just in general, I think maybe for a small startup with maybe a few people, as a technical co-founder, you'd be expected to code. But one thing my co-founders have been telling me is that if we ever become successful, I'll have to stop coding and do CEO work, and always tell them, but someone from AT runs a successful company and he manages to code. But after hearing you speak, I've been wondering, first, how do you manage to write code at this level and still be CEO of a company this large? As much as you say you're not that many, you're in many countries and you serve a lot of people. And also, does that have any impact on the business side? How does the executive team respond to that? And how do the employees and maybe the technical team respond to that level of involvement? Is it micromanagement? Does it take your time away from customers? Or just talk about that.
Yeah, I think this is how my journey has been, and I think this is what happens. Think about Lionel Messi, for example. Lionel Messi was the leader. Oh man, I was a Barcelona fan, so I'm still grieving. He was the leader of that team. He didn't have to be the coach. He didn't have to be the goalkeeper. He just became very good at that thing. And by the way, if you asked Messi, where should the team practice next season, he will tell you where. Because he's in there. He knows. He has so much context. For me, I code so I can get context. I walk into HR meetings and I can contribute. I walk into marketing meetings and I can help. And I can coach and I can share my perspective because I have context, right? And I also go maybe 3-6 months without coding, and I'm like, okay, let me just take a step back, the laziness part, and think about the business holistically, right? With my context. So I have a lot of context on AT because I built a lot of what AT sells. So I have, it's like the architect of this building walking in here and we ask him, we want to do a concert, where should we do it? He might be like, actually, this is not the best place, just do it down there. Do it here outside. The acoustics are so good. You understand? So for me, CEO, I hate titles. I really do. And I have so many fucking titles, sorry. So many titles. Oh my God. But really, the reason people are like, you take the title is because I have the most context. So if someone in Rwanda wants to grow the business in Rwanda, they know that if they talk to me, I might have some ideas that might make sense for them. But I don't talk to them from a perspective of this is what you should do. I talk to them from a perspective of this is my experience. This is my experience, and these things I've never done. I've never grown a Rwanda. I never have. I can just be like, by the way, when we went to Uganda, the developers were excited, and we did hackathons, and this is what happened, this is what we measured, blah, blah, blah. And there is someone else in Uganda who has better experience than me, right? So I don't hold on to like, top down, that's how it needs to be, right? So I think and in a startup, by the way, that's how it should be. That is exactly how it should be. If you want to code and you are the best engineer, you should code. Because it also needs to work for you. If that trajectory doesn't work for you in terms of your career path, then you need to have that honest conversation with your co-founders and be like, guys, I want to become the best coder, right? And you might even be the CEO, but you still really, really, really doing what you love, right? So in AT, we're trying to abolish titles. People are ready to drop their titles. I think one day on LinkedIn, you'll just see, I think they wanted to be someone. So everyone's email should be someone at Africa's Talking. Because everyone is always asking me, do you know someone at Africa's Talking? I'm like, yeah, I am someone. Like, that's the best title. I am someone at Africa's Talking, that's it. That's all I am. And if you talk to me, I will point you to the right person that can help you. So I have found that to be very liberating. So every day, for example, I get 2, 3, 4, 5 emails that I have to look at. Before we put in this structure, I used to get tons of, my calendar, I have 2 standing meetings for Africa's Talking. One is the backend chapter, the other one is the company meeting which everyone has in their calendar. Only 2 hours of my life am I obligated to show up in a meeting. Imagine how liberating that is. How many CEOs can say that? I see people jumping from call to call to call to call. Why do you need to be in those calls? Don't you trust those people? Why do you feel like you need to be in those calls? Speaking as someone who was in all those calls. Until you realize, hey, even if you feel like you can double this product, because yes, you are more experienced, even if they won't double it and they will take it to like 50%, they will have grown so much, because by the time you double it, you're tired. Then this thing will be alive for another 10, 15 years, because you let the team grow. So that's my sense. So it's a whole different take. Actually, there is a whole book called Teal Organizational Practices. I don't know if you guys have read Teal. Yes. We should add that as a whole conversation. And here, actually, I won't even speak. There's a whole team in a that's implementing Teal. And you know what Teal means? It means even your salary, you decide. Isn't that cool? Yes, you decide. And then it's peer reviewed. Yeah. Why not? Why the hell not? Anyway, we're still on our journey to get there. I'm not saying today today we still have a spreadsheet. But our intention is by the end of the year, it's not Sam getting a spreadsheet and saying we make this much. It's actually peer reviewed, and everyone can say, in the middle of the year, by the way, I want a raise. And people are like, by the way, Graham has been doing the most. He's been doing the most. Let's give him more money. Why not? And the day Graham is not doing the most, we're like, Graham, you're not doing the most. And then everyone knows how much money is available to run the business. We know how much money we are making. Every day we can see AT has no money or AT has this much money. What do we do with this money? Oh, let's set up in DRC. Great, everyone agrees. Boom, DRC is done. It's the best way to run a company, where all this power is actually in the hands of everyone. And then now you can still play that CEO role and talk about code the whole day.
How do the engineers respond to the CEO coding like this? As much as there's no power management, it's still like you can enforce maybe standards, but maybe without a CEO there, maybe there has to be like some sort of
team approval, like, okay, we should be ordering our stuff this way, input this way, but maybe if you come as a CEO, maybe people might be reluctant to oppose your views because, you know, either implicitly or explicitly the authority is still felt. Or you can do things your way, but everyone else has to also do things your way, not like they don't have the same ability to just enforce their own personal standards. Like, how does the team respond to now the CEO being one of them, as one of the engineers?
I don't show up for those meetings. So, because I know there's still that fear of the CEO, you know, and that's what I'm working to diffuse. There's still a fear of Sam is the CEO, so whatever Sam says, that's what's going to happen. There's still that, and there's a lot of people though who, like people like MK, you know, who will tell me, I like people who are like, Sam, you don't even understand. MK has fought so hard. He's like, we need to do it like this. And me, I'm like, no, we need to do it like, but I'm like, MK has been doing DevRel for 10 years. What am I telling him? What am I telling him? MK, the only thing I can tell him is how to write Scala code, right? So at the end of the day, it's something that you build in as you grow the business. Because if you don't, actually what happened in AT is we had this culture up until 2018, when we were about 40 people. Then we raised money. Hey, boy, did we hire. We were 140 at some point. 140.